across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Julia, and of course thank you to Claire as well. Back tomorrow, well, just Julia, at 10 o'clock right here at the home of Common Sense. Good afternoon. I mean, the news agenda is yet again overflowing with savoury delights. There's so much stuff to talk about. By the way, newsflash, the Taliban says it's ready and willing to work with Reform UK. Not ordinarily the headline that a political party would want to see, but it may just prove a point here. Taking migrants from Britain after Nigel Farage unveiled, of course, the deportation of plans to deport 600,000 asylum seekers within 5 years if he wins the next election. Now, I'll come to this in a second, but I'm going to ask the question, 24 hours on from that announcement, do you still have faith in Reform's plan? Elon Musk says he's willing to fund legal action against corrupt officials who he claims covered up crimes of grooming gangs. We'll speak to Rupert Lowe later in the show on that, and I'm sure we'll dip our toe into some of the other current territory with Rupert too. And unemployment is set to reach its highest level since the COVID pandemic. 6.5 million people claiming out-of-work benefits, a 500,000 increase since Labour took office. What is happening out there? There's a gazillion job ads, by the way. Everything you need to know, and of course we bring you all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Yesterday was the big announcement from Nigel Farage, giving a very powerful speech on immigration, the likes of which we've never seen before. Nothing like it in our political history. Trust me, I've looked. And even if you aren't a Reform voter or a supporter of Mr Farage, there can be no doubt that this was intoxicating stuff, ambitious and unprecedented, if nothing else. Like any big announcement of this sort of nature, it takes around about a day. It's a bit like budgets. You know, the budget comes up, the Chancellor stands at the dispatch box and announces a huge, big, old fiscal bag of giveaways. Wow, everyone's a winner, Governor. Roll up and claim your cash. And then the next day, the bean counters and the number crunchers come in. They have a little snifty into that bag and realise all is not what it seems. And today, those critics and bean counters have been circling. They've been out in force. Is the idea of mass deportation even affordable is number one question, it seems. Could it happen? Even if it could, something as seismic as this takes a lot of consideration elsewhere. The logistics, the opposition, the numbers Reform would need in Parliament. That's a huge factor. The sheer number of detailed agreements with other countries and, of course, the overarching cost. Now, Rupert Lowe, when he was talking about doing something pretty similar, I think the price was something on the lines of £47.5 billion. Nigel Farage yesterday said this could be done for £10 billion. In fact, somebody challenged Mr Farage on the numbers. He said, well, Reform are just better at maths. Does that appease you? This is a tricky area for Reform to get through, of course, from the possibility of paying people to leave. That's one element of the agenda, to those deals with third world countries. I mentioned Afghanistan and places like that, to even banning migrants from making any sort of claim in the first place. So you've seen a bit more of the detail now. You can see how this is sort of unravelling. What do you make of it then? 24 hours on, do you still have faith in Reform? 0344 499 1000. Now, Elon Musk has kind of tacitly waded in. He says in a tweet yesterday, he wrote, Advance UK will actually drive change. Advance UK, of course, is Ben Habib's party. Farage is weak sauce who will do nothing. Nobody can quite work out what it was about Elon Musk's extraordinary change of, I wouldn't say loyalty, affinity, whatever you want to call it. There was a connection with Farage. And then one day, what was it, about a year ago now, less than that, suddenly Farage's name was muck as far as Elon Musk was concerned. And he wrote something like, Elon Musk is not the man to be running things, it should be Rupert Lowe. Now, a lot of people are saying Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib should get into bed together. I mean, if you were going to vote on that part of the spectrum politically, it would obviously make perfect sense. I would imagine something like that will happen. Quite why Elon Musk is perturbed by all of this, who knows? But he's got lots of fingers in lots of pies on this one. But it does throw up a genuine question. I mean, he's a very successful businessman. He's a multi-squillionaire. We know all of that. Former advisor to the president. They also had a fallout. What is it about Elon Musk? Nonetheless, his name does carry, rightly or wrongly, a bit of weight in these discussions. And some have suggested that Musk's intervention has sort of slightly diluted the fireworks around Mr. Farage's big immigration announcement. Make of that what you will. Is that a factor as far as you're concerned? Elon Musk essentially saying that Nigel Farage isn't the real deal. If you want proper, harder, more honest politics, then you've got to be looking at people like Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe, as he's previously mentioned. So with all the numbers in, and there's still more to come, you look at this big ambitious plan that he announced yesterday, and it was big and ambitious. And remember, I've said this a number of times, since COVID, no political party is allowed to say, no, it's too big, we can't do it, it's too big. They closed down a country for a number of years. They closed down our economy, health services, schools, people's businesses. People became ill, mental health conditions, all manner of issues. So no one can tell you any longer in power that it's not possible. If you can do that to a country, anything is possible. And I would imagine getting rid of people who shouldn't be here would be something that is not only not controversial, but completely possible. It's going to take a few quid. It's going to take some thought. You've seen the numbers. You've seen a bit more of the detail now. Do you still have faith in Reform's plans? 0344 499 1000. Chloe Dobbs is with us to take us through the big stories of the day. Afternoon to you, Chloe.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
You're not skiving today like last week?
Oh, yeah, was it? It was last week I wasn't here, wasn't it? Yeah, you were here, I wasn't here. Did you just sit there on your own?
No, I was on Zoom with
Philip.
Philip, who was fabulous.
All right, OK. I mean, he was all right.
Just got to keep you in check.
He was actually very good.
He was.
Yeah, really good. And it's got his first time in this chair. Normally on the other side of the chair. So he did brilliantly and he will be back. Let's talk then about yesterday. Nigel Farage continuing to insist that he will detain and deport every illegal immigrant in Britain. Let's have a reminder of what he said.
But here's what we have to do to make Operation Restoring Justice actually work. We have to leave the ECHR. No ifs, no buts. It may have been a good idea 80 years ago. Frankly, it isn't today. We have to repeal the Human Rights Act of 1998, brought in by a Blair government, many of whose families seem to do rather well off the back of it. We will, for a 5-year period, disapply the 1951 Refugee Convention and any other barriers that can be used by lawyers in this country to prevent deportations, to prevent the right thing from happening. We'll create a legal duty for the Home Secretary to remove those that come illegally. And crucially, we will detain all illegal migrants who come, and we will do so immediately.
It was a big speech. It was bold, Chloe. Even if you're not a fan of Nigel Farage, we've never really heard a party leader speak in these kind of very forthright, determined tones on such a seismic issue as this.
Yeah, I think it was very, very bold, and they're starting to put some details to their policies to make them look credible. I think that they were trying to not only look bold but to look like a credible, serious party here. You could see the tone of it. Although they were being bold in what they said, they weren't just throwing around slogans. They were being quite clear about how exactly they are going to do things. They're going to introduce this British Bill of Rights, and they've started to detail what exactly that's going to mean and how they're going to deport people. So really interesting stuff. But I do worry with Reform that they are possibly promising too much too soon. They'll get into power the so-called blob will try their best to stop them. I'm sure they'll deport far more people than Keir Starmer or the Tories ever managed to. But I think they're going to face a lot of backlash from, the Lords, Whitehall, lawyers.
Yeah.
I think the voters will be disappointed if Nigel Farage gives everybody the impression day one, everyone who's here illegally is going to be out on a plane when it's actually going to take time. Yeah.
Well, many are saying even 5 years wouldn't be enough. You'd need at least a couple of those years just to tick all the boxes.
But they've got a lot of legislation to change. I doubt leaving the ECHR is going to be something that takes 5 minutes. Look how long it took us to leave the European Union. We can start ignoring ECHR rulings straight away, but we'll see how much the lawyers push back against that. Other countries ignore the ECHR. That's what I think we should be doing in the interim. But I think, if anyone's got the tenacity to do it, it is Nigel Farage. There's no way that Keir Starmer... I think what's becoming clear is no matter how desperate the Labour Party get, no matter how bad their polling gets, they still don't have the tenacity to do it, even though that it's becoming very clear to them that they're going to lose the 2029 general election because of their failings.
Well, Labour's popularity has reached its lowest level in 6 years. This is just recently prompted ministers to deny the party was running scared of reform. Westminster voting intentions, Reform UK 28%, Labour 20%, Conservatives 17% and Lib Dems 16%, the Greens at 11%.
And I think they know it's game over and they're only going to be there until 2029, because anything they try and do now, they've been so poor over the past year. I think the public are just going to say too little, too late, or you're doing this just to try and combat reform, not because you genuinely care about this issue. Every time they make a new announcement on smashing the gangs now, everyone knows you don't genuinely mean this and you don't genuinely have a conviction to solve this issue. You're just doing it because you're freaking out because of the polls. Everything Nigel Farage puts out, then Keir Starmer puts up a tweet that tries to copy it. And they put up the Reform Twitter account
yesterday,
where they put up a doctored photo of ChatGPT, where it's Keir Starmer typing into ChatGPT, write me a tweet that sounds like Nigel Farage.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was very good.
I didn't see that. But as you rightly say, to put this into action is vast. Firstly, they need to come into 2029, an election 2029, with a thumping majority. So just winning it isn't going to cut, even based on those figures there, would not show a massive majority.
But they've got 4 years.
They've got 4 years.
People keep saying, and they said this when reform hit 10%, then 12%, then 15%, they say, they've peaked there. They can't possibly go any higher in the polls, but they seem to keep going up. Zia's been very clear, we do need 350 plus MPs to do what we need to do. You hear a lot, we've had this huge petition with, about 1 million signatures to have an immediate general election, but I don't think that is what reform will want. They'll want the Labour Party to mess things up so badly that it gets even worse for the Labour Party in terms of their support. Their support may also be split up with the Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana party as well, which may help reform. So hopefully they can get their big majority.
Could be split as well, because if you got a Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib mash-up.
I think this is going absolutely nowhere.
Do you not think?
I think the evidence is in the local election results. So before the local election results, there was this huge ongoing storm online between the Reform Party and Rupert Lowe. And think what you like about Rupert Lowe, but it did not exactly cause a dent in the local elections. They did fantastically, and if they've done some polling of the general public. Most members of the general public, even people who voted Reform, don't know who Rupert Lowe is. Those of us who work in this area and we're on X all the time, we see his tweets and everything all the time, and he seems very prominent. But your normal member of the public that doesn't worry about politics that much in their day-to-day life, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I think I personally think people are silly to go and say support another new party. You see people will disagree with one thing Reform does, and they say, I'm going to go vote for UKIP, or I'm going to vote for Ben Habib's party. It's crazy that we've had this Reform Party go from a tiny party to now being a genuine contender to potentially win the next general election. That's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing that a new party does that. Another party, I'm sorry, but Ben Habib's party is never going to win the 2029 general election.
No, it's not,
gonna
but it
happen.
could massively split. I mean, there is a big appetite out there for people who don't, of the Elon Musk persuasion. You've got Musk endorsing Ben Habib by saying that Advance UK, that's Ben's, the name of Ben's party. Rupert Lowe doesn't have a party, it's more of a movement at the moment. If they were to get together, there is that thirst for some, and again, you have to be careful that you don't judge things just by social media, because as you rightly say, we're on it all the time, we see all these tweets. People who've got hundreds of thousands of followers say, you know, start a new party, Ben and Rupert, get it together, there's so much support for you out here. And in reality, it probably won't be quite as much as they think, but it might be enough in some seats to scupper things. And it wouldn't mean they would win, it just mean that they might deny reform from winning.
I mean, there's a chance that happens, but I think it's only going to be a few people on the fringes. And given what Nigel Farage has announced on Tuesday, being much clearer about his take on mass deportations than he was previously, I think it was pretty bold. I think that is the boldest you're going to get from a party that is a serious contender. I wouldn't, like Rupert Lowe, describe Nigel Farage's plans that he put out on Tuesday as weak. I think it's astonishing that someone who's a serious contender to win a general election is being so hardline when it comes to deportations. So I think it's crazy that the idea that a load of voters are going to look at that and say, that's not tough enough on immigration, I've got to vote for Ben Habib instead.
Where there will be none of
you know,
this.
it's a democracy. Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, they can do their thing. They can start a new party if they want to.
We've got
I just don't
Corbyn
want to
and
see
Sultana mucking it up on the left, and we've got potentially another split on the right, which is already a split in itself.
What could be hilarious is if we end up with the 2029 general election contended by the Corbyn Sultana party and Reform. And the two previous big parties, Labour and Tories, aren't... I
thought you were going to say the Lib Dems for a second then, Chloe. That would have been a horrendous
I don't think that Ed Davey falling off paddle boards and going around on a hobby horse is going to help win them the general election.
But stand by for more water slide-based japes from the Lib Dem leader.
I cringe so much every time I see his videos.
I don't know why anybody finds that funny.
He is like the ultimate embarrassing dad.
It is. It's exactly that, isn't it? It's the weird uncle at a wedding trying to throw some shapes and thinking he's pretty cool at it. Listen, stay with us, Chloe. More to come. Lots to talk about. Over to you as well. Do you still have faith in reform? And I asked that question based really on the announcement yesterday, because 24 hours on, we have a bit more detail. Is it doable? Possible? Is it just a dream? Do you sense you're being given inflated ideas of what might happen, but very little chance of it even coming to fruition, even in 5 years in power? And of course, all of that assumes that Reform UK will win the next election. 0344 499 1000.
I think they genuinely believe that all that was needed for the British economy was to kick out the Tories and to put the Labour hierarchy at the top table, and things would suddenly come good. Turns out that's not how things work economically. You actually need to have an economic strategy. There isn't one here. There are just wishes for the
Exactly
Labour
right. And it turns out as well, the stories in The Sun this morning, unemployment's going to reach highest levels since the COVID pandemic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Yes, welcome back. 23 minutes after 1 o'clock. Chloe Dobbs is with us, looking at the big stories of the day. We mentioned, Chloe, Elon Musk in the last section there, but he's in the news for another reason, because he says he's going to fund legal action against corrupt officials over here who covered up grooming gangs in Britain. He's vowed to support after an unofficial inquiry by Rupert Lowe, the ex-Reform MP, of course, found exploitation in 85 councils, and Musk says he will step in. He's also branded Labour's safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips, as a rape genocide apologist. I mean, strong stuff. It doesn't really get any stronger in that regime, considering I think she's still the Minister for Safeguarding Women and Girls. But there it is. Musk is stepping in. I'm sure Mr. Lowe, will speak to him later in the show, will probably welcome that.
Yeah, I don't agree with Elon Musk going on Twitter saying Nigel Farage isn't the one to lead the Reform Party. Yeah. I think he doesn't understand how our political system works, and that party, as I say in my opinion, won't have a genuine chance. But when it comes to the grooming gangs, I'm so glad that he has shone a spotlight on this issue, even if sometimes he's very forthright in the way that he writes it. It was him in January who started really creating this debate about a national inquiry, because he started retweeting stuff and he started making a noise about it, and suddenly it was all eyes on this because of him making it go viral. And so I don't think that we would have this national inquiry that has been announced if it hadn't been for Elon Musk. And I think anyone on all sides, regardless of whether you're left or right, you like Farage, you like Rupert Lowe, you like Keir Starmer, whoever, we should all be behind people who were involved in the grooming gangs facing their justice. And if Elon Musk's money helps mean that justice is served, I'm happy.
The only problem I see with this sort of idea that you try to hunt down anyone that was connected in covering it up is the usual rule of thumb will apply, that there's probably 20 people in every chain, whether it's a teacher, a social worker, a police officer, educationalist, lawyer, whoever. And each one of those people, the usual way these things unravel, will say, well, no, that was nothing to do with me. I was just asked to do this. I didn't stop anything. And then the next... So you put it all together and you have this incredibly damning scenario, but no one individual is going to put their hand up, are they, and say, oh, yeah, I covered it up.
Well, I think that... I don't know exactly what is going on with Rupert Lowe's inquiry that he's doing with the money that he raised before we knew there was going to be a national inquiry. Yeah. But when we have the national inquiry, I guess they're starting to work on it, God knows how long it will take, that will have statutory powers to force people to turn up. And even if they say, oh, I had nothing to do with it, they're going to be grilled, they're going to be questioned on evidence, and hopefully some people, even if they deny it, will be shown to have been complicit in the horrific rape of all of these young girls, and hopefully some justice can be served, as opposed to us just coming out of that inquiry with some sort of report and nobody actually gets held accountable.
Well, I mean, the sort of thing we want to see, there's been more than one story of this. The police turn up at a house where there's two, 12, 13-year-old girls in a house with 5 40-something men or older. The police turn up, the 2 girls get arrested for being drunk and disorderly, and nothing happens to them. But now, there's lots of those stories out there. Crazy. It's hard to ascertain which ones are completely authentic. But that's the kind of thing where you want to see those officers sitting in inquiry saying, just talk us through what you were thinking on the day you arrested a 12-year-old girl for being in the home of 5 47-year-old men. It's that we want to see.
Yes.
And I wonder how, of course I'd like to see all of that as well, and social workers and the various councils.
None
and
of those people have been held to account. None of them have been. It's crazy that nobody has been fired for this.
Yes. I mean, there was the one occasion when there was a whistleblower, wasn't it? She was sent on a race awareness course because she sounded the bell years ago.
Jane Senior.
And they said, yes, sorry, you can't say stuff like that, mate. No, you can't be doing that.
No, because she referred to Asian men.
You better go on a racial awareness course.
I know.
What the hell?
It is just beyond belief that the scale of the cover-up that went on and the number of individuals that helped covered it up. It wasn't just one bad apple. And heads need to roll. And it really frustrates me when people say, oh, there's no point because it was a thing of the past. These crimes are still going on today. Maybe they're not going on the same scale, but there are still girls being raped by grooming gangs because there is still a problem here. Yeah. And it needs to be taken seriously.
We are short of time, so let's move to this story. The pub goers wearing England flags who were turned away from a pub. There was a crowd of them. They had the flags and some wearing the shirts, etc. Denied entry into a pub in Birmingham when they were asked to remove their flags, but they refused. Here's what happened.
You're like the one from, Trump. You know his bird.
I'm happy to let you
quite pretty as well.
So
I have to take my England flag off to come into an establishment in England. Madness, isn't it?
Jen's happy to serve you again. But
do you not think there's an issue with that? Like,
it's not.
Do you not understand why people might be upset by that? What happens if I had an England flag shirt on? Would that be all right?
Gents, again, I'm happy to serve you.
If I had an English flag, would that be all right? If I had a Palestinian flag on, would that be all right to come in?
Oh yeah, you'd be straight in there.
Oh, you wouldn't stop that, would you?
I'm happy to serve you if you'd like.
Ah, you can't answer the question because it's difficult for you, isn't it?
I can answer it.
I can leave, but I just wanted to highlight that this pub will not let anyone in with an English flag, which is absolutely ridiculous, really.
Was it ridiculous? She's the landlady. She's got a lot of considerations. Obviously, if you say to somebody, should you be able to walk in a pub with an England flag draped around your shoulders, the answer is, well, yeah, just go and have a pint and a bag of nuts, so what? Her thought was, actually, these weren't just people who randomly happened to have turned up with England flags. They were on a bit of a protest, and therefore she's not willing to risk that.
Yeah, it was unclear exactly what her position was because she just wasn't really answering any of the questions. Yeah. If it's the case that they happen to have an England flag on them, but the real reason why they're being turned away is because they are completely off their faces drunk and it's inappropriate to let them in, then fine. But it wasn't clearly the case from that. It seems like it was about the England flags. And I think that's crazy. I mean, the pub is where you'll probably find the most patriotic people in this country. I'm sure the England flag will be welcome there. I mean, of course, if it's her private property, she's got the right to send away who she wants, I guess. But I presume that in that area, you'll see people boycotting that pub now because this is unacceptable.
Yeah,
that people who love their country...
I feel sorry for her because I don't think she was like some mad lefty going, nope, you're not coming in with those. I think she thought, hang on, I'm in a bit of a position here. There's a load of guys, just guys, turning up with flags. I think they've just been doing some flagging, as it's probably now called. Is that the new word for it? And, are they part of a protest movement? Is there I don't really know what's happening, and I don't know if I can risk this as the landlady. She was only a fairly dainty figure, and I wondered, was she intimidated? She seemed very polite. She didn't seem like a mad lefty, that's my point.
I'm not as kind as you, clearly, because I do not feel sorry for her. This is absolutely ridiculous. Even if someone has just been on a protest, if they turn up and, at the door, they're not all drunk and off their faces and looking like they're going to smash the place up, then fine, let them in. If I owned a pub and some people turned up and they'd just come from a pro-Palestine protest and they had some flags on them, even if I disagree with their views, I'd still let them in my pub.
Yeah, no, I agree with that principle.
If they were going to behave themselves.
But she didn't, my point, I suppose, if I was her lawyer, she didn't sound like a sort of an anti-English, she sounded like she was worried about something else. She seemed like a very polite lady, wasn't sure what to do.
She was just someone who's refusing to answer the question.
But I guess it's probably not her pub.
She didn't get angry and shouty. Fine, okay, good. It didn't end in a big shout.
But she also wasn't going, I know what you lot are like, yeah, you're all Tommy fans. It wasn't all of that, was it?
Yeah, but ultimately she was turning them away. She probably thought that, maybe I'm wrong, but she probably thought that in her head, but she didn't say it to their faces because she knew she was being filmed and she knew it was going to end up on the internet, right? So she may have thought that, but just said, I'm not answering it.
All right, I've changed my view, Chloe. You're a cretin. Let them in.
changed your mind. That's good. We've made progress today.
Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't happen often. Chloe, good to see you. Thank you. Chloe Dobbs with us on the programme. More from you on the way. Loads of comments coming through. 0344 499 1000. You might want to talk about the pubs and the flags and all of that. Plus, of course, now we are getting a bit more detail on Reform's deportation plans. What are you making of it? Do you still have faith in Nigel Farage's party? Lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is from Anthony, who says, Ian, those who criticise Nigel Farage for his plans, I often wonder what they actually want, apart from the status quo. The rhetoric appears to stop and hinder, rather than try a new proposal. That's spot on, isn't it? There is no, if you look at the critics, there's no plan, there's no bold plan, other than, as Anthony absolutely correctly says, this is about, let's retain this. Let's just carry on as we are, and then we'll keep coming out with sound bites like Rishi's Stop the Boats or Keir Starmer's Smash the Gangs, which you almost have to kind of laugh every time you say it. These are meaningless, vacuous platitudes that politicians who suffer from groupthink and status quo retention syndrome wheel out every time. You get the same response every single time. So even if you don't like Nigel Farage, and that's fine, we do live in a democracy, you can't surely doubt the bold nature of what he announced yesterday. We've never seen anything like it. It's resulted in this headline, however. The Taliban said they're ready to work with Nigel Farage and Reform on taking migrants from Britain. Now, Mr Farage, of course, yesterday pledged 600,000 asylum deportations in 5 years, striking deals with countries like Afghanistan, Iran, Eritrea, and scrapping the European Convention on Human Rights if needed. He's branded the arrival of 180,000 Channel migrants an invasion and accused Britain and France of colluding. In a moment, Layla Cunningham, Westminster Councillor for Reform UK. First, Kate Ferguson, political editor of The Sun on Sunday afternoon to you, Kate.
Afternoon.
Always nice to have you on with us. It is the usual thing, isn't it, with a story such as this? I alluded to budget time, when the Chancellor does a big budget, everybody gets a slice of the pie. Isn't the Chancellor generous? Wow, they're giving money away. We're all going to be rich. And then 24 hours later, the bean counters have been in. They've whipped out their abaci and they've had a good old look at the numbers, and it doesn't quite add up. That's sort of what's happening to some now with this. Many are saying, well, we've now had a deeper dive into Nigel Farage's plans, and they are ambitious. Some saying they're not affordable, others saying they're not even remotely achievable. There are definitely some humps in the road for reform on this.
Certainly. Look, I think what Nigel Farage has done this whole summer, but particularly in yesterday's press conference, is tap into some real public anger and a genuine kind of thirst for change from the British public. So they want these boats to stop. They think illegal immigration is far too high. And really, they're happy to see radical solutions put forward in order to solve that. Now, the question over Nigel Farage's and reforms policy will be really with the detail. So he says, I think he says it's going to cost, I think on the tip of my tongue, it's 10 billion. Am I wrong?
10 billion was what he came up with, but a former colleague of his had a much bigger number.
He says these plans are going to cost 10 billion. Now, looking at these plans, you imagine it's going to cost more than that, because you're talking about building new detention centres. You're talking about policing those detention centres. You know, a lot of the people you're putting in these new sites, as Nigel himself say, are young, fit men. So it's going to take some real security to keep them penned in 24/7. You're talking about mass deportation flights, maybe with a cash incentive for both the country taking them back and potentially the illegal migrant getting on board that flight. So I think we're going to potentially see those numbers rise. And then you're looking at, is it feasible? Can you get these countries to agree to take these flights back? Yeah. I mean, I think it's certainly true that British people want these flights taking off, and they will be happy to see them go. But can you get Afghanistan, Eritrea to agree to land them? And
you've got to be, I think they were talking about 5 flights a day. Is that 5 flights a day for 5 years? I mean, that's a lot of aircraft. You've then, as you alluded to there, you've got to find somewhere to land them, Kate. You've got to get agreements on that. I mean, the list, it's not that Nigel Farage is suggesting it's straightforward or easy, but the more you look into this, you think, yep, it's doable, but boy, it's going to take a whole department to do this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what you're going to have to do is do what Trump's done in America, is really throw the kitchen sink at it. I mean, look, you alluded to it in your intro. Does Nigel Farage want a headline with the Taliban saying, thank you, yes, please, we relish the idea of working with a reform government? Well, on the one hand, probably not, but it's quite interesting that yesterday at Lobby, when Number 10's press spokesman was asked about it, he says, well, actually sending people back to Afghanistan working with the Taliban is not off the table. So, you know, Nigel is tapping into something here. And the other thing that I was going to point out that's happened today is that Nigel Farage is the first mainstream big politician to say, look, that's it, we've got to junk the ECHR, we've got to quit the ECHR. Yeah. We expect Kemi to follow suit at Tory conference. She hasn't done that yet. But interestingly, in the FT, the pink pages, Jack Straw's talking about Britain needing to disentangle from the ECHR. Wow. A former, you know, Labour big beast politician. Yeah. So this isn't just a kind of fringe right-wing, you know, extreme position. I think you're starting to see a political consensus emerge that the ECHR is now, you know, being used in ways it was never designed for and needs either radical reform or for us to disentangle from it altogether. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jack Straw. I remember bumping into him in Parliament once, and when he was Home Secretary, and asking him how it was going. He said, look at the job I do. Well, how do you think it's going? And he looked like, not defeated, but never-ending. And I remember that comment that he made about, you know, if you want to really overload anyone's head, then just make them the Home Secretary and show them the immigration files, because that's the area that is never... And that was then, of course. And he was very vocal at the time. I remember him getting criticised on Question Time because he dared to talk about some of the issues around grooming gangs, which was raised, and that was way back. So it's interesting that he's sort of intervened a little bit on this one, and I suppose
The overarching issue, Kate, just to go back to reform and these big, bold plans, it involves them winning an election. And to get this into action, you haven't just got to win it, you've got to win it big.
Yeah, look, these are radical proposals, and the British public will quite rightly only really believe it when they see it, because they've been promised a lot by different politicians that they would stop the boats, smash the gangs, and those numbers keep going up. The arrivals keep landing in Dover. Nigel Farage is obviously way ahead in the polls. You know, I noticed that today the bookies are slashing the odds of a Reform victory again.
Yeah.
But it's 4 long years to wait till the next general election. And it's true that if you don't win a general election big, you can be held kind of to ransom by your backbenchers. Any slim majority means a kind of just small cabal behind you can thwart your plans. And we do know, don't we, no shade on Reform, but their politicians can sometimes fall out with one another.
Yes.
But, you know, 4 long years till the election. And what I would say to Nigel is he's definitely seized the political initiative this summer. He's definitely the one kind of setting the headlines. And where he is going, we are seeing other politicians follow.
That's exactly it, isn't it? And we saw even Kemi Badenoch yesterday, which I thought was a bit of a cheek, really, suggested that Reform had stolen her plans. And a lot of people were going, well, I've never heard you even talk about this before, Kemi, other than the soundbite of getting tough on immigration. You've never said anything like this before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is really a copy and paste job of the Tory plans. Tory's she's famously waiting for Tory conference, which isn't happening until October, to announce what we all know she's going to announce, which is that Tories will back withdraw from the ECHR. I mean, it is true that Nigel Farage is being bigger, bolder, and, you know, to be honest, we're going to be honest here, controversial. You know, some people really might find it unpalatable to think that you're going to create detention centres. Sure. You know, that's something that we've not done before as a country. You know, maybe the voters think, OK, well, we want to stop the boats, but we don't want to go that far. You know, you'll have to see how this really plays out once people hear and consume what he said yesterday.
Indeed. Well, you look at places like, you know, I was reading a piece in the Times earlier, I'm sure you would have read it too, I know you don't tell anybody you do, but you would have done, about how other countries are dealing with this issue, and they cited even the Netherlands, you know, the sort of liberal place that, you know, is open to all sorts over there in the Netherlands, but they have migrant registration centres over there. Many other countries, Germany and France in particular, are changing their policies on what they do. So there is certainly a mood change, but as you rightly say, Kate, Farage is taking it to a whole new level. Listen, lovely to have you on again. We will speak, of course, very, very soon. That is, of course, Kate Ferguson. She's the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, with her thoughts on it. It's bold, ambitious, and what's wrong with that? Let's speak to Leila Cunningham, Westminster Councillor for Reform UK. Leila, good afternoon to you. What did you make, firstly, then, this big announcement yesterday from your leader? We've never seen anything like this before. We've heard the main parties, if we can call them that any longer, wheeling out sort of sound bites over the last few years. But this was pretty solid stuff. Is it really achievable?
Of course it's achievable. We're going to have a democratic mandate, and anyone who wants to subvert democracy by going against it is going to have a lot of problems. You know, the British government has a duty to protect its people. We don't have a duty to illegal migrants who may pose a threat. We don't have a duty to foreign courts or regimes we didn't create. And what Nigel was clear about yesterday is a reform government will always act in Britain's national interest. And I noticed you're talking about the Taliban. It's not about the Taliban. It's about enforcing the law. So if someone has no right to be here, they don't get to stay. It's as simple as that. And effectively, the Conservatives and Labour have decriminalised illegal migration into our country. Yeah. We don't have a border.
And we don't. If you can row on a boat into this country, then and stay here and be accommodated and fed, then you'd have to describe that in any world or anyone's book as a country without a border, right?
Well, exactly. I need a passport to get into this country. And I'm British. I can't come home without one. If I lost one abroad, I'd have to go to the consulate, sort myself out. I'd never dream of turning up at Heathrow Airport without a passport. And look, Ian, no one wants to send anyone to danger. But here's the real danger, right? The real danger is putting unvetted men in British towns near British women and girls when we have no idea who they are. And that's what's been happening now. And for me, one sexual assault, one rape, one criminal incident is just too many. And that's what reform is refusing to defend or accept.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I noticed yesterday, Kemi Badenoch, your former party, she suggested, as I was just saying to Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday, she suggested that Nigel Farage had stolen her ideas, which I thought was, I mean, I don't mind, you know, a bit of hyperbole in politics, it's how it works, but that was an absolute peach. She went for the bullseye.
I mean, does anyone even read what the Conservatives put out? I don't think, I've not read it. You know, for decades, the Conservatives and Labour have promised action, and they've done they've done the exact opposite. I mean, they're still oscillating if they should leave the ECHR or not. It's clear that the ECHR is being abused by judges and lawyers to block deportation. Yeah. It's making our country more dangerous. And our plan sends a clear message, that's it. They never sent that clear message. Is it ambitious, Ian? Of course, absolutely. Is it impossible? No.
And what's wrong with being ambitious? I mean, what's wrong with, I mean, it's the lack of ambition that's been one of the biggest criticisms of the major parties over the last decade and a half.
Yeah, I mean, because they've lacked that political backbone. They've lacked the political courage. And we've seen from Nigel in the past, he definitely doesn't like that. And we finally have, you know, it was reassuring to hear Nigel speak yesterday. And I'm sure loads of people around the country were reassured to hear that finally there's a leader that is completely unapologetic, by the way, about putting our country and the British people's dreams, future, safety and hope first. We've been left behind.
And it's a view that's absolutely shared by so many of our listeners and viewers on this. Listen, Layla, I have to stop there for time and no other reason, but we are going to speak again on this. I know we will, because we always do. Layla Cunningham, Reform UK councillor for Westminster. Thank you to her. Of course, one of the big hurdles is that Nigel Farage would have to not just win the next election, but he'd have to win big. If he found himself in a kind of hung parliament situation, then a lot of this could be scuppered, although Gary correctly points out, can I say to your guest, that if a policy is in a general election manifesto of a party and that party forms the government, then the Lords cannot block the passing of laws needed to implement the policy. That's absolutely bang on. Ordinarily, if you want to bring something into law and it's not in your manifesto, the Lords can keep bouncing it back if they don't like it very much. You can use a thing called the Parliament Act, which I think was used, was it used in fox hunting? It might have been, or certainly they talked about it. You can use that to override the Lords. It's not looked upon favourably, but yes, that's true. However, if Reform found themselves as the majority party, but not with a big enough number of seats, a large enough number of seats to form a government on its own, that's when the fireworks start, of course. Over to you next, 0344 499 1000.
to roll out ULEZ cameras to fine pensioners, delivery drivers, but can't even be bothered to prioritise basic safety. So yeah, I do think there's an issue and there's a conflict of interest.
No, well, I think there's certainly something that needs to be dug about there. It does seem interesting.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Rory in Harpenden says Farage's plan is a go. It'll cost less for a flight than just 3 days in a hotel for the migrants to be deported. There's already staff aplenty, or we convert the Bibi Stockholm into a ferry and deport immediately to where people came from. France. Where they came from before France isn't our problem. France can then deport them upstream. And it's interesting because the EU can deport back to the country that they just came from. So that can be done if you're in the EU, but I don't think you can just do it willy-nilly, because when sort of Remainers say, no, if we were still in the EU, we wouldn't have this problem. No, we really would. We really would. Let's go to Gary in Sevenoaks. How are you doing, Gary?
Very well, and hope you are yourself.
All good, thanks. Yeah, far away.
On the Nigel Farage topic again.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be extraordinary if a man who was rejected in, standing for Parliament several times, who half the country, or at least 49%, hate, was to win the next general election? I mean, that in itself is a sign of just how disgruntled people are with things at the moment.
Well, also the fact that, that latest polling that's just out in, a couple of hours ago, showing that yet again, Gary, and you'll be familiar with this, there they are, the biggest party in terms of Westminster voting intentions. 8 percentage points above Labour. I mean, they've got 5 MPs, for God's sake. That's extraordinary.
To go from that to run... To describe the disgruntlement, I think what's happening in the country now, I'm going to reference the famous episode of Fawlty Towers, the Waldorf salad one.
Yes.
Now, it starts off with Basil in the dining room and everything's going wrong. People are complaining about late food, wrong orders and cold ones. And all he does is berate them. He won't admit any failings.
Correct.
He just has a go about them. And so they all shut up. They're all cowed by him. He represents the establishment. And then upturns the Americans who are having none of it, don't they? And of course, the whole fiasco around the Waldorf salad plays out.
Walnuts,
and he brings more lies to cover other lies from the kitchen, doesn't he? And it's like the old flannel that we get from our government. So, Basil's representing the establishment. And then finally, in that sort of climactic scene at the end, everybody is gathered, all the guests are gathered in the reception of the hotel, that hallway that we all know so well, and the Americans are about to leave, and he says something about satisfied customers, and Basil goes around all the people and he gets in their face and he says, "You're satisfied, aren't you?" And the person goes, yes, I am. "And you're satisfied?" And the two old ladies, "Oh yes, Mr. Fawlty, we're satisfied." And he goes around all of those and he thinks he's won the day, and he starts launching into a triumph speech, like, "Here in Britain we value things more," and it's just like the family that we get this diversity is our strength. That chap you had on yesterday, Sebastian Salek, he started saying, when you were practically asking him about how things would be solved, he starts going, "Well, it depends on what sort of country you want to live in."
It's all of that, isn't it? I tell you what, the Fawlty Towers analogy is perfect, and for those who haven't seen the episode, then look it up, because it fits brilliantly. Gary, I've got to move for no other reason than I want to get another voice on before the news. Great call to kick us off with Gary in Sevenoaks. Nigel's in Salford. What have you got for us, Nigel? Afternoon.
Hi, Ian. First-time caller.
Welcome.
Everybody seems to be from the opposition parties, seems to be putting barriers in front of Nigel's suggestions, it won't work, can't do this, can't do that. There's 2 very simple things that they have to do. The Labour government did it. If you just let me outline what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, day one, as the Labour government did, they stopped the Rwanda plan.
Yeah.
So day one, Nigel comes in and he stops all legal aid, all of it, for immigrants. That allows him time to pull out of the ECHR and any other treaty that ties us into this nonsense. Secondly, people say, where are you going to put them? Well, you don't have to build anything, actually. Before I retired, I worked for a construction company, and we built massive warehouses all over this country, both distribution and storage, hundreds of them. Those are now lying empty because of the downturn in the economy, which is another story for another day. Those are fully secure. They are surrounded by 6-metre fences. The top of the fence is at 45 degrees into the warehouse, or the distribution warehouse, and it's barbed wired or razor wired.
So you're saying there is already infrastructure in place that could begin to accommodate what Nigel Farage is talking
all the roads
about?
and everything in.
Yeah, got it.
It's got office facilities inside, so the Home Office can be bussed in each day for a 2-shift processing. There are secure units inside for what used to be very expensive items. They can be used to pen in the migrants until, if they failed, they pen them in until they're deported.
So there is, look, it's down to the, if there's a will, there's a way, and you've just articulated that there's already existing infrastructure that could help. Nigel, I have to move because the news is upon us. Thank you for that, Nigel in Salford. More calls on the way, 0344 499 1000. Now you've seen the plans and had a deeper dive into what Reform are proposing, do you still have faith in what they can do on this one? It's a big subject, a bold ambition. No one's tried it before, and that is why certain politicians don't like Farage very much. Let's get the news now at 2 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back to the home of Common Sense. Loads to get through. Nigel Farage, of course, made that big announcement just yesterday. The Taliban have now said it's ready and willing to work with him and Reform UK on taking migrants from Britain after he unveiled plans to deport 600,000 asylum seekers within 5 years if, of course, Reform win the next general election. Looking at the latest polling, based on that, they will win the next election. That in itself is a headline, right? This, of course, comes as the government's support continues to fall, according to that poll. And they're 8 points behind, by the way, just to give you the numbers. 8 points behind Reform. And the Tories are about another 13 points behind them in total. And Elon Musk says he's willing to fund legal action against corrupt officials who he claims covered up the crimes of grooming gangs. Keep your eye on that story. Will it come to anything? We'll speak to Rupert Lowe later in the programme. All the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. This comes from a man who says questions should be asked of what happens if we don't deport illegal men. Fair question. James on the landlady and the pub and the flag says the landlady made it quite clear that they could come into the pub, but only if they took their flag off and left the flag outside the pub. Bob, was it Bob or Brian, sent me a message on X to that effect. As a landlord, I wouldn't let a load of people in the pub with crash helmets on if they were bikers, but they're perfectly welcome in the pub. It's the same thing. She was not anti-flag. Jacqueline says, Jacqueline's in Bournemouth, Nigel all day long. And this one from Terry in Slough. I'm in my 70s and believe that only the Reform Party will put the great back into Great Britain. Thank you very much indeed for that. Loads of messages coming through. 87222 if you'd like to get in touch, or of course you can leave us a voice note on 0344 499 1000. Kevin Schofield is with us. Kevin, of course, is the political editor of HuffPost UK. Good to see you again, Kevin.
Nice to see
Fresh
you.
from the holiday. This is like that point when you know, it's sort of back to school time.
I know. I used to hate that.
Did you? Yeah. After the summer holidays.
That was the worst. That was the worst.
Was it always muddier then? It just felt like
in Scotland it was.
It's always muddy in Scotland. Yeah. Well, it depends where you are. Yeah, it was a very defined moment of the year, isn't it? And it's always, also, give it 3 weeks, you'll walk into Tesco and you'll see your first chocolate Santa.
Oh, do you not? Yeah, you're right, actually. Well, it'll be the Halloween ones first, because there's a lot of Halloween.
Yeah, I went into what's it called? The Range. You ever been in a Range?
Yeah, I know, yes.
I thought it was home base around my neck of the woods. Turn up, home base had gone, it disappeared.
Yeah, that's right.
And I walked in, it was like walking into a kind of Halloween. I thought someone was going to charge me to go in. It was like that. It was like a ride at a fairground. There's ghosts and all sorts of things squealing at me, Kevin.
My youngest is obsessed with it.
They love it.
She starts talking about February, what she's going to wear.
It's up there with Christmas, isn't it?
Oh, I get so excited about it because of the sweets, I guess.
It's the sweets.
And dressing up. They get to dress up and eat lots of sweets.
They love the dressing up. This year, my youngest, Ghostbusters, has got into that for some reason, which I quite like.
Yeah, great. That's quite retro, isn't it?
It's a bit retro, yeah. I've got to find a Hoover that he can stick on his back in time for the 31st. Anyway, welcome back. Good to have you back with us, Kevin. Of course, Parliament is still in recess.
It is. One more week.
Political journalists are not in recess.
We never sleep.
You never sleep. You never stop. What is the flock over there at Westminster, or the lobby, as we call it? What are they making of Nigel Farage? Because, I mean, if nothing else, he is the gift that keeps on giving. You're never short of a headline.
Absolutely, that's what I was going to say. He's driven the political narrative all summer, which is remarkable when you consider they've only got, is it 5 MPs now, or is it back to 4 again?
It went back to 4. I
think it's up to 5 because Sarah Potchin won the by-election.
She won the by-election. There was the fellow that
James McGoldrick had to lose a bit. But anyway,
he's now been cleared of stuff, hasn't he?
What I'm trying to say, yeah, that's right. So what I'm trying to say is, for this tiny number of MPs they've got, they make a lot of noise.
An awful lot.
And you know, they realise that in the summer, we call it the silly season. There's not a lot going on. Therefore, there's a fantastic opportunity to really set the political weather, and that's exactly what they've done. The government have been nowhere really Labour, the Tories likewise, whereas all summer really we've spoken about small boats, immigration, and of course yesterday this the plan that Nigel Farage unveiled. And we are, from a news point of view, very glad, because there've been very little else to write about.
So we're grateful to Nigel. Thank you, Nigel, for providing
between him and Donald Trump
plenty of material.
Donald Trump in America, obviously, as well. We write lots of stories. You know, the Alaska summit with Putin.
Yeah.
Zelensky a few days later with European leaders. All that type of thing. That kept us going for a few days as well.
Of course it did, yeah.
So between Trump and Farage, actually, they've just about got us over over the line.
It's interesting, isn't it, watching the amount of attention that a party that only has that amount of MPs gets. Now, if, for example, the Green Party said, well, we're going to go to a big hangar in Oxford and announce our new net zero policy, I don't think we'd even be talking about it, to be honest. It might get a note in the diary column somewhere.
We wouldn't, although the one thing to look out for is next week is the result of the Green leadership campaign. Now, the reason that's interesting is because they've got a guy running, very left-wing, called Zach Polanski, and I think he's trying to...
Is he a film director?
Sounds like it. I hope he's not related.
I was about to say, that's the last thing he needs.
Yeah, exactly, but I think he's trying to fashion himself, or present himself as the sort of Farage of the left. Very populist, very good on camera, quite a good communicator. So that's one to look out for. So that might make the Greens a little bit more newsworthy than they are, which wouldn't be difficult.
I was about to say, how hard is it to make the Greens more newsworthy? They've had a succession. We still regularly have Natalie Bennett on every now and again if we want that sort of left-wing environmental voice. And now, God bless her, because she always agrees to come on, and she always gets a little bit of a roasting, and she kind of knows that's the way it works. And I honestly think Natalie Bennett doesn't know how to do an interview now unless she's absolutely destroyed. I think she actually thinks it's part of the deal. It's like, oh, this is the bit where I get actually annihilated.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where she goes. Everyone will usually throw something at her that she can't answer.
Oh my goodness. I was going to say maybe it's an opportunity for her to put forward Green talking points that she wouldn't otherwise, but if she's getting slaughtered in it, maybe it'll be counterproductive. But Zach Polanski would be able to absolutely give as good as he gets. So that's one to keep an eye out for. But you're right, if it had been the Greens ordinarily yesterday in a hangar, I wouldn't have been interested.
It wouldn't have got the same. Wouldn't have got the same headlines.
Not least because Reform are so far ahead in the polls. I mean, Nigel Farage could be the next Prime Minister, so what he says matters.
I mentioned this a couple of hours ago. The YouGov poll for the Times shows Labour has slumped to a low of 20% of the polls. Farage and Reform 28%. The Tories 17%, which is almost on par with the Lib Dems at 16%.
Yeah,
I mean, this is grim stuff for the Tories, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. We'll maybe come on to it, but there's another defector from the Scottish Tories. Over to Reform, and I think that is another straw in the wind, you know, that the Tories just can't get on the pitch, really. I mean, Kevin Baden really struggling to cut through. I think a lot of people will...
And they did the Scottish Tories did, it was 2010, wasn't it, when they did all right? Like, was it 2010 or 2015?
15. It was, after the Scottish referendum, basically
That's true.
That put rocket boosters under them. Ruth Davidson was their leader.
Correct.
It was a sort of high watermark. She was a very good communicator.
She was really good.
She was great. People could relate to her, which in Scotland, as a Scottish Tory, you know, they'd been in the doldrums for such a long time. But the Scottish referendum gave them relevance again. They were very pro-union. A lot of Labour voters who backed the union thought that Labour were prevaricating on it, so they voted Tory. So they got a big boost there. But that's now...
It used to be the gag, didn't it? There's more pandas in Scotland.
Which was true. Which was true at one time, there was 2 pandas and 1 Scottish Tory MP. That was literally true.
And I think it then transposed to Labour when Labour got a kicking, you know.
Right, they were back down to 1 Labour MP.
And I think the pandas are up to 3 now, so there you go.
The pandas were raging at being compared to the Tories.
The pandas are absolutely furious. So let's move then to that story, the defection. I mean, are we going to see more of this? Because a Scottish Tory is, you know, quite a rare thing. Maybe slightly less rare than it was 20 years ago, but nonetheless, it's been tough. Labour did well. SNP, you know, ever since the whole Sturgeon thing, has sort of fallen apart, hasn't it? It would have been unthinkable that Reform would even... Nigel Farage could almost not go to Scotland. I mean, it was in that territory, wasn't it? Now he can.
Well, he literally got run out of Edinburgh really about 10 years ago, and he joked about it at his press conference in Edinburgh today about how he had ended up being not a hardship for Nigel. He was barricaded into a pub for his own safety. You couldn't make it up on the Royal Mile.
He was there for 4.5 hours apparently.
He loved it. He came out absolutely legless. Best day of his life. But no, so he was because of this baying mob of Scottish sort of left-wingers, nationalists. But now I mean, I wouldn't say he's the most popular politician in Scotland, not by a long shot, but undoubtedly Reform are doing much better in Scotland than you'd probably have thought even this time last year. There was a by-election earlier this year, and they got, in a sort of Labour heartland, they got 25%. From a standing start, which is absolutely remarkable. So they are definitely looking to make serious advances at the Scottish Parliament elections next year, largely at the expense of the Scottish Tories, which probably explains partly why this MSP, Graeme Simpson, has jumped ship to Reform.
What's interesting is that I mean, you could argue different times of the political journey over the last 50 years or whatever, where, you know, people use the phrase, you know, we've never seen anything like this, you know, seismic landslides and goodness knows what else. But we are in a really interesting time, and even on the with the sort of major parties and Reform as well in this. You've got Reform where this potential split could happen if Rupert Lowe, along with Ben Habib, form a party. I mean, it's going to be hard for them to make serious inroads, but it might scupper the odd seat here and there.
Possibly.
And then on the left, you've got the Corbyn-Sultana affair going on, and that could significantly damage Labour. That's a very serious threat to Keir Starmer.
Undoubtedly, there is definitely a group on the left who still hold Jeremy Corbyn in very high regard, don't like Keir Starmer at all, probably voted Labour, held their nose and voted Labour last year to get the Tories out, but won't do it the next time. And if they're presented with a viable alternative in Jeremy Corbyn's party, or even the Greens perhaps, or the Lib Dems in other parts of the country, then that could really damage Labour as well as them losing votes and seats to Reform, maybe in the Red Wall.
Listen, Kevin, we will speak again next. So next week, they're back next week, aren't they, Parliament?
Yes, they're back on Monday.
First PMQs next Wednesday. How's that going to pan out? You've got two sort of fairly wounded leaders.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it gets more
maybe
interesting
they'll form
for
a coalition.
Well, their critics would say they are pretty much of a muchness these days anyway, which is why Reform are doing so well. The main time that PMQs is exciting now is when Nigel Farage has a question.
100%.
Which isn't every week, but at least then it shakes up a little.
There's a moment where they stand up and
they all shout at him.
And they all shout at him.
Which works to his advantage.
And it's house points all round for Nigel when that happens.
Absolutely.
The whole point of his shtick is to get
the establishment's against me.
Indeed. Kevin, thank you. Kevin Schofield with us. Kevin is the political editor of HuffPost UK. More comment from you. Simon says, work with the Taliban, work with Iran. Remember, the object is to remove the illegals, says Simon in Somerset. Graham in Epping, how many illegal Channel migrants would you need to detain, restrict their freedom and hold indefinitely before you saw a reduction in the numbers crossing? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, says Graham in Epping. This one in from Simon. The Tories held power for 14 years, even with their lying and ignoring the wishes of the British people. When Reform win the next election and they carry out pledges in their contract, how long do you think they will be in power? Long enough to bring this country back to the brink of disaster, and that's the key, isn't it, to all of this. Here's one that comes in from Kaz in Bedford. Apart from Nigel's brilliant speech, it's great to see Reform capitalising on the summer recess, which I've always thought is a negligent disgrace. Is it a disgrace, Kevin? The summer recess? Sorry, you're just taking your microphone.
No, it's fine.
To go to a caller.
I can talk. No, they've got to have and it's not a holiday either. I mean, they will take a holiday in that period, but they are back in their constituency speaking to a lot of voters. So, it's an easy stick to beat them with, but I think it's unfair.
Got it. I'll come back to Kaz's message in just a second. Thank you again to Kevin. This is Talk.
unveiled this morning was the most radical immigration policy in British history. And that will set the debate now for weeks and months and possibly years to come. I'm pretty immersed in this stuff. I know how radical reform wants to be. I was really impressed by just how far he is pledging to go. I mean, what he's talking about here, deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, is a massive undertaking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
2:20. So I was reading Kaz in Bedford's message when we got kind of diverted into talking to Kevin again about recess, which Kaz introduced. She said, apart from Nigel's brilliant speech, great to see reform capitalising on the summer recess, which I've always thought of as a negligent disgrace. This party are made up of professional business people who are used to putting in the hours rather than three homes Rayner, who's slobbing about on an inflatable boat. Nigel's tanks are now firmly parked on Labour's lawn. They are indeed, and on the Tories' lawn as well. A few people are picking up on the fact, well, you know, Reform have got to do more than one thing if they win the election. They've got to sort out the NHS, education, the welfare bill. This is going to be the busiest term in Parliament, and we're talking about it like it's next week. It's 4 years away, just shy of 4 years away. Mike's in Warwickshire. Mike, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thanks. What are your thoughts?
Well, they're making a big deal about how much this is going to cost and 600,000 and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Which is fine, you know, they've done the sums. Okay, well, good. Well, my question to them will be, how much does it cost if we don't?
Yeah, good point.
So, you know, if you've got 600,000 people staying here, how much of that money will be used up in what length of time?
Yeah.
Then there's the legal bills. And then when you start to get on, because I heard you mention the NHS and stuff, well, if you stop illegal immigration coming in, that'll start to take the pressure off the NHS. It will start to lift. And now, what? It's not the complete answer. That is true. But the fewer people, the better off you are. And that goes to other services that are being offered out. So as you go along, you start to relieve the pressure because the system was built around a set number, and that number is overly inflated by all the immigration coming in. So I don't really see why people should have an issue with this, because we're not talking here about people who are legally entitled to be here. That's like me saying to you, you put this guy up in your spare bedroom who broke into your house.
Yeah.
Why would you do that, right? So,
and then somebody said, well, it's going to cost 300 quid to take him out. That's not worth paying that money. And it's a ridiculous argument, right?
Correct. Now, as far as Labour are concerned, because they've been useless is an understatement. Okay, they've brought a whole new meaning to the term useless. You know, they're so bad. I really haven't got words for them. The Conservatives weren't very good either, and that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So when people turn around and say, oh, you won't do it, which is all mischief-making by the press, the people who want to keep Labour in and want the Conservatives to be the next government and all this kind of stuff, all this mischief-making and false information, in my view, that they're putting out, they've only got to remember one thing, and this is what I say to people. They did nothing about it. They did nothing about it. We know that is the case. So what have you got to lose? If he doesn't do anything about it, tell me how you're worse off. Because you're not.
Indeed. It's absolutely right. I mean, the cost of doing nothing is greater than the cost of doing something, even if it does go into several billions. I mean, it's a crying shame we should even be in this position in the first place, because this is taxpayer money, of course. Mike, I move on for time. Thank you for that. Grumpy Old Lady says, I live by the Manor Farm pub. It is next door to a hotel that houses asylum seekers who go in there and use their government money vouchers. That's why she didn't want people wearing the England flags, although I have to say you can't spend any form of it's a prepaid card which will give you about 30 quid a week. You can't spend it in a pub, so I don't know what they buy in there. Maybe peanuts. Who knows? Philippa is in Poole. Philippa, thank you. What have you got for us?
I just want to say that Nigel is the only one with the testicular fortitude to do anything about what's happening in this country at the moment. I've been listening to his speeches today, yesterday I've been listening to Zia, and when Nigel is asked questions by journalists, however derogatory those questions are, he comes back with a straightforward answer, and he's right on the nail with every single thing he says. Yeah. He's one of these unusual politicians who actually answers the question that he's being asked. And people need to get behind him if they want real change in this country. I believe we are on the brink of a revolution, a political revolution in this country at the moment, with all the flag rhetoric going on and people putting up flags everywhere, with people having stronger views and airing their views about illegal migration. I think that things are changing. People are realising that if they don't speak up, nothing's going to change. And Nigel is that voice for this country at the moment. He is speaking up for those people that want change, the Indigenous people of this country that want to have our NHS kept, that want the vulnerable, disabled, all of those people looked after in this country, for people who want to be paid properly for the jobs they're doing, people who want the economy to grow, all the issues that Nigel is championing behind. We want our country to be as good as it always was in the past with what we do for those that live here. And that's
Do you remember, though? Do you remember, Philippa? Do you remember when people said all of that about Boris Johnson?
I never said that about Boris Johnson.
No, you might not have done, but that was the mood music, wasn't it? He was the man that was going to reinvigorate the country post-Brexit because he'd cut an amazing deal that Theresa May couldn't manage, even though the deal that he did cut was pretty much the same as the one Theresa May did.
I'm sorry, but Boris was all bluster.
He was.
He had no action behind his words. When Nigel says he's going to do something, not only is he says he's going to do it, he's actually going to put the action behind those policies.
But that's what people thought of Boris Johnson. No, that's why he hit all those red wall seats. He got in places that a Tory has never succeeded in.
Absolutely rubbish, and I would never vote Conservative in my life. I've been a Labour voter all my life, but I am behind reform.
That's interesting.
110%.
Got it.
110%.
All right, Philippa, thank you very much. Interesting you made the journey from Labour to reform, which does happen, just not quite as regularly as it happens, it seems, from Tories to reform. Let's talk to Tony in West Sussex. Tony, what have you got for us? Hi.
I'm seriously worried about you, young man. I think you should go and join James O'Brien.
You think so? Why?
20 minutes of your show today, you and Chloe.
Yes.
Nigel can't do it. Negative, impossible.
No one said that.
No, you did. You both said it. I was listening to you.
I can read you. I can read you what I said because I got it written here.
No. You said it's too big a task for him to do. You can't do it. It's impossible.
No, I never said that. I never said that.
Well,
I said. Not 24 hours later, after he'd made an announcement and the bean counters are out in force, arguing that it might not be affordable, and even if it is affordable, could it be too seismic to make it happen? The logistics, the opposition, the numbers needed in Parliament. That's not me saying that. That's throwing out the question and the mood of those that have analysed the figures. Other than that, you've only seen me say or heard me say that it was a very positive, bold and ambitious thing that he's doing. So you just made all that up.
In your position, which is very powerful because a lot of people listen to you in your station, you should not be so negative on Nigel Farage and reform because everybody said Trump couldn't do it, and 9 months after Trump...
Well, hang on, how is that negative to ask the question, do you still have faith in reform?
You're implying it can't be done. I'm going to put a spanner in the works.
Well, it's not implying it can't be done. It's implying that if somebody is coming along with a big ambition, as big as this, and as I said, never been seen before ambition like this, then it is right for us, both as journalists and as taxpayers, that we analyse that, right? I mean, we're talking to Rupert Lowe later. Would you say that Rupert Lowe should go and join James O'Brien?
Rupert Lowe's another case in time. You're trying to pass the buck now.
No, I'm not. I'm making the point that if somebody says something that you specifically don't like, how does that make them a mad raving lefty?
because we should be guiding Nigel to the job in Downing Street. And
What do you mean we should be?
I'm not sure he can do it.
It's not my
I'm
job
not
to
sure
guide
it's a bit
Nigel
tough.
to Downing Street. He can do that on his own.
Yeah. I just don't see you being. You're doing the right thing, mate. You're very important where you are, what you say.
But every call we've had on, everything I've read out, including our last caller, for that matter, has been positive Nigel Farage, which is why I asked the question, what do you say to those that argue it can't be done?
Well, I would say they said Trump couldn't do it, and now he's got zero wrong illegal immigration. Trump can do it, Farage can do it. We have to be positive.
The only difference is Trump doesn't believe in free speech, does he?
Oh, come on, here we go. You are winding me up
He
now,
wants to send you to jail if you burn a flag.
And so if you go in the street and burn the Union Jack or the flag of St. George, you should go to prison.
Go to jail for you burning a flag?
In your country.
Get in the bin, you donut. You don't believe that, Tony?
No, I don't really. But...
Listen, no, I get it. I get the sentiment. I don't want anybody sent to jail for burning a flag. I don't want anybody burning a flag. I think they're lunatics. But
you said it first.
Said what?
You just said Trump's sending people to jail for burning the flag. He's not yet, but he will do.
That's what he said. A year in jail, minimum.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's a bad thing. It might bring people back.
Come on, you don't believe that.
Come on, you're too soft.
You don't believe that. You want to send people to prison for their right of freedom of expression?
I'm going to have an hour's kip and then I'm going to turn on for Jeremy Kyle.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah, well, you might do. You might not wake up. That's the problem, Tony. You know. That's always the danger we all face every night, I suppose. Tony, you've been brilliant. Thank you, mate. Tony in West Sussex, 0344 499 1000. Do you know, I've been doing this job long enough to know that when we normally write a little bit of blurb at the beginning of the show. Some call it a monologue. I write a few kind of bullet points and the odd paragraph here and there, and then you kind of fill in the gaps on the way. And I'm always mindful on certain things, like talking about Nigel Farage. Even as I was saying those, I thought someone's going to think they're my words. They're my words of saying this can't be done, that can't be done. And of course, naturally, if you open up newspapers from The Sun to The Telegraph, you will see commentators asking the question, is this really possible? It's a perfectly reasonable question when a politician is offering up something so seismic and unprecedented. What are we meant to do? What kind of world would we be if we just went, yeah, OK, that's fine, that's got a free pass, I'm going to vote for that? You want to chew the fat a bit, right? You want to give it a good going over. Digest it, whip out your abacus, as I mentioned. Can this work? And of course, in doing that, you do end up appeasing Tony in West Sussex, because asking those very questions generally invites many people who are very positive about Nigel Farage and reform to call in and counter the cynics. So you end up with the positivity that Tony suggested was lacking. But it was lovely locking horns with Tony, even if he did make some stuff up. One here comes in from Jeff, who says, I'm on the south coast, and the only good thing about the weather today is there'll be no boats. It's as blustery as it could get. I thought that this morning. As I left the house, it absolutely tipped. Biblical it was. It does seem to have an effect on the channel. Lines are open. More from you on the way. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Goonie says, Ian, are you reading from a script? No, is the answer. Well, Kevin O'Sullivan does quite a seismic monologue at the beginning of his programmes that he spends hours doing. So, yes, you are kind of paid to put that together yourself. But that's just so you don't lose track of what you say. If that helps, Goonie. It may not, I don't know. But, yeah, other than that, we are sans script throughout the course of the programme. Let's move to this story then. As we mentioned earlier, Elon Musk intensifying his criticism of Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, calling him weak sauce who will do nothing, while publicly backing independent MP Rupert Lowe and simultaneously Ben Habib's Advance UK party. The tech billionaire has also said he's willing to fund legal action against officials he accuses of covering up grooming gang crimes. And of course the move comes as that unofficial inquiry led by Rupert Lowe claims child sexual exploitation occurred in 85 UK councils. This is horrendous stuff to read and revealing. Let's speak now to the man behind this, Rupert Lowe, leader of Restore Britain, former Reform UK MP. Rupert, good afternoon to you. Just give us your take then on the Elon Musk offering to fund those or fund cases against those that are deemed to be directly or indirectly, possibly even indirectly, responsible for covering up grooming gangs. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. How are you?
Good as gold.
Sometimes since I've been on your show, and I certainly haven't got a script. But,
are you sure about that?
No, absolutely not. This all happened because, as you know, we raised around £600,000 from 20,000 people for our rape gang inquiry, because Reform under Nigel said they would do it, and when they didn't do it, I decided it should be done. So we've done it. And we're running it in the way we think it should be run. And we've identified that this vileness has been happening in, as you quite rightly say, 85 local authority areas. Yeah. Now, that means it's probably more towns and cities than that. And I've had a lot of people who've actually pointed out to me that you haven't mentioned Swindon, or you haven't mentioned Redruth, and you haven't mentioned other places where they're absolutely sure that this blot on our history has been happening for a long period of time, while the authorities, and that's all of them, from the police, social services, obviously local authorities, the NHS, virtually everybody who must have known this was happening have been turning and looking the other way. So we put out an interim update of where we'd got to, and we've now gathered the evidence we want with the help of the wonderful Sammy Woodhouse, who is herself a victim of this violence. And we are hoping to have our hearing in November, when we'll then produce a report. But we announced this yesterday, and extraordinarily, Elon Musk pinned our update to his own Twitter account, or X account. And then he followed that up by saying that he would help fund legal cases against those people who had been empowered to avoid exactly this and had not done their job. Yeah. So I think, from my point of view, we do believe that with our relatively meagre £600,000, when you think the J report cost £186 million, yes. Yeah. We're making 5p do the job of £1. So if we have any money left, we do have the option of taking out private prosecutions, and that we will intend to do against selected targets. Because I think it is such a scandal. It's gone on for so long. And as you probably know, I made some fairly outrageous speeches well, they're not outrageous, they're just telling the truth, in Parliament in January. And that's really, I think, changed the way everybody views this topic, even though at the time I came in for a lot of criticism, particularly from Labour and the Lib Dems. But it's extraordinary to me that we have a whole structure that's designed to protect British citizens, and it's failed in its duty for such a long period of time for a variety of reasons. I'm delighted Elon is happy to support us in any way he can, Obviously, money is the ammunition which makes things possible. But just his moral support and his support on Twitter, or X, is fantastic. Because with 226.5 million followers, that's the equivalent of over 3 times the size of the UK.
Yeah, it's significant stuff, that's for sure. And by the way, I used to find it extraordinary, Rupert, when you would make speeches on this area in Parliament and you'd hear particularly the Lib Dem and the Labour benches almost shouting you down and, you know, shame on this man, without even having a moment to realise that the lack of self-unawareness was extraordinary. They were highlighting the very problem that you are highlighting, and that is this kind of extraordinary sense of this cannot be true, you're making it up, we can't speak like this. That's how we got in this place in the beginning.
Well, I don't think, Ian, until we own up to what has happened and we're honest and transparent about the way in which it's happened, it's going to be very difficult to rebuild trust in any form of public body. And I think, you know, we've got to get our nationalist sort of soul back, and I think we've almost been crushed by this dishonesty. So let's start by getting this out in the open, by bringing those perpetrators who should have done better to book, and if necessary, send them to prison. Then, you know, I think it's going to be very difficult to move on. And I think we have to start there, and then we have to, as you know, move on to detaining and deporting illegal migrants who are arriving, illegal migrants who are living here, foreign criminals in our prisons. I'd like to see them deported, and the 10,500 of them. And as you know, my issue with Nigel Farage was over my speech in Northwest Essex, which I gave in January in Kemi Badenoch's constituency, where he tried to edit my speech. He tried to take out the word mass from deportations, which I agreed to do. And if you watch my speech there, you'll see the word mass didn't appear, but deportations did. And he also tried to take out my line about deporting the families of those people who are dual nationals who knew that this rape was happening in their family and didn't report it. Because that is effectively, as you know, in this country, aiding and abetting somebody who's breaking the law is in itself illegal. And so therefore, I would deport them too. I have never at any stage said that legal migrants who live here should be deported. I have made it quite clear what I think the initial target should be and how we should approach what I think is a scandal which is damaging the structure of Britain. And we have to stop it now. It's possible to stop it. We just need the will to do it. That's what's lacking in.
Indeed. Are you saying, Rupert, that Nigel Farage has stolen your work?
I don't think he's stolen my work, but I think he's a follower, not a leader. And whilst I spent a lot of time working with him, and I think I played my part in building up reform support, but once we'd won the argument and we were going to win the election, I wanted to know what the plan was, where the shadow cabinet was, where the policy was, where the structure and where the plan was. And I think people can sort of see that Nigel's making it up as he goes along. And, you know, bringing in people like Mohammed Ziauddin Yusuf as chairman of Reform, I mean, he'd done nothing to build Reform till Nigel brought him in. And at the end of the day, bringing free radicals into a party which has effectively relied on loyalty and long service of people like myself, both in the Brexit Party. Before that, I obviously did it in different places, in the Referendum Party. Then I did a lot for Vote Leave, and then obviously the Brexit Party. I think some credit has to go to Richard Tice. He and people like myself and Ben Habib kept it going when Nigel went off to, in his own words, make money. So, I don't really want to divide what I call common sense thought, but equally, I don't want to see somebody who isn't going to deliver for the people elected as our next Prime Minister. I mean, Boris failed us, and I think there are some very similar characteristics between Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, and we need serious leadership that's this time going to deliver. And it won't deliver it, Ian, without a plan.
And Nigel Farage says he has a plan. He announced it yesterday in Oxford to a lot of fanfare, and whether there was a bit of political plagiarism going on. I mean, let's face it, that happens all over the place. I mean, even Kemi Badenoch had the gall yesterday to say it was her idea. For goodness sake, I don't know where she pulled that one from, but nonetheless, he says he's in full control. Reform UK are riding high in the polls. It looks like, based on that recent polling just from a few hours ago, they're going to win. And yet Elon Musk describing it as weak source who will do nothing. So you agree with Elon Musk?
Well, I think Elon Musk's comments in January were the genesis of the issue between Nigel and I, because he said Nigel wasn't the man to deliver Britain from its current malaise back then. And, you know, I think he was right. Looking back on it, I think he's obviously the world's most successful entrepreneur. He's clearly a visionary. And at the end of the day, he's a highly principled man who clearly wants to see things that have been done very badly put right in Britain. And I think that, I mean, I think he clearly sees himself as having a relationship with this country. It is, after all, the mother of democracy, and it's important that we try and protect what our history and the great culture that we have built up over many centuries.
And you don't think Nigel Farage can do that? You don't think he can lead and win the next election?
After what they did to me and the way in which they did it, Ian, I don't think they will deliver for the British people, no.
One of the areas that Mr Musk did pick up on, of course, you rightly said that he first suggested you would be a better leader of Reform UK earlier in the year. Yesterday he was talking about the Advance UK party led by Ben Habib. You know what I'm going to ask you next, Rupert. There's a lot of mood music out there.
Well, can I, before you go any further, I'm going to correct you. He didn't actually say I was the right person to lead Reform. What he said is Nigel wasn't. But when asked whether I was, he said he didn't know me, but he liked what I said on X.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
That's what he said. So people misquote.
It's a fair endorsement, though, wasn't it?
Look, I'm delighted to have the endorsement of Elon Musk. I think he is sort of global influencer that Britain is going to need if we're to be rescued from the lunacy which I witness every day in Parliament.
Indeed.
I mean, it's quite extraordinary.
So with all of that in mind, though, Rupert, would you consider then this kind of connection, this marrying up of your ideas? And I know that Restore Britain isn't a political party as such. You're kind of a think tank. Would that be fair? Or you're certainly a
No, we're a movement. We're a movement.
A movement, that's it. I did know the word because Charlie Downs corrected me the other day.
We're a uniting movement. And I'm pleased to say we have Tories who are members. We have I think we've got some Labour voters who are members, and the Tory party have given sanction to their people becoming members of Restore. Our plan is to unite, okay? We want to unite common sense thought behind a credible plan which is going to deliver for the UK.
So would you unite with Ben Habib and the Advance Party?
I'm happy to consider uniting with anybody, but at the moment I want to unite everybody. And when I see a credible plan for delivering Britain from this current malaise, then I will either support it or I will lead it.
Have you had a conversation with Ben about this yet, Rupert?
I've spoken to Ben over many years. We served in the European Parliament together. I know Ben very well. Yeah. Advance UK is not a party at the moment, and it doesn't have electoral approvals. Advance UK calls itself a party, but it's not actually yet a party. So I'm what I say I'm a movement. I've had a tremendous response, and I'm very humbled by the response we've had. I've also had some decent donations, and I've got a lot of support coming in, and we are bringing together a team of very bright, very able young people.
Sure.
And I'm pleased to say a lot of our support comes from the young, despite the malign education that many of them have been given, where they're misinformed about most things by the education system we have here. Most of them are, I'm pleased to say, to the right of my political spectrum, because they want their country back. They want an opportunity to thrive. They don't want to see a sort of socialist quagmire within which nobody can prosper. And as I think you probably know, I've used this quote before, Solzhenitsyn said, if everybody is equal, they're not free. And I think people should remember that. People are born differently. So I think we should celebrate difference. We should celebrate those people who are able, who have natural ability. I don't see there's a problem with that. And right now, I think we've got the equation very wrong between the people who contribute, who take risk, who work hard, who dedicate themselves to actually achieving something in their lives. And we seem to reward the indolent, the lazy, the people who sort of bob and weave and avoid taking responsibility at the expense of those who do take responsibility. And successful societies, I'm sorry to say, don't reward indolence. It's one of the 7 deadly sins, as you probably know. So I think we need to reward people of enterprise, and we need to encourage and help them in every way we can. And I think that's what the young want to see now.
And just a final question on that area of where your movement goes next, what happens with Ben's party. Do you think the two of you together, though, could beat Nigel Farage?
Look, I'm not going to speculate. Ben, a deal with Advance UK is one option. A deal with the Conservative Party is another option. A deal with almost anybody or setting up my own party is an option. Right now, I want to unite. I don't want to divide. I don't want to get into this sort of reds versus blues versus yellows versus greens. I think the country is more important than any party. And part of the problem we've got is that people put their own interests and their party interests above the interests of the country. And that's why I think a movement was and is the right structure to unite as many people as possible in. And the more people we unite, the more power we get to be able to influence. And we need to influence now. We can't wait 4 years. The damage this Labour government's doing to Britain will not be reparable if we let them continue for 4 years. I mean, we've only got to wait and see what damage Reeves is going to do in her autumn budget. I mean, they're breaking virtually every pledge that they made just over a year ago before the election. And that's the whole lot of them. That's Rayner, that's Starmer, that's Reeves. Everything they said, quite apart from Steve Reed promising he wouldn't put APR on farmland and then waiting till he'd won the election and then put it on. These people are twisters, Ian. They're not people who should be leading Britain. So sadly, they won a landslip election victory because the British public didn't really have any other option that they knew to vote for. And this is why we have to give them another option, which is going to deliver for Britain. And at the moment, I don't see anybody who is structured in a way which can do that. And Restore Britain, if you look at what we did with, say, Lucy Connolly, we were able to start a petition for a debate in Westminster Hall at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 11 o'clock at night we had 100,000 signatures, which means there will now be a debate on the Lucy Connolly issue, which I hope she will come and join us for. So the more people who sign up to Restore Britain, the more influence we get and the more we can make common sense prevail. And it's common sense that we haven't got now in Britain. We've gone bonkers. Collectively bonkers.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I suffer that feeling on a daily basis, thinking the world had been turned upside down. Black is white, left is right, night is... I mean, goodness me, it's Alice in Wonderland territory, Rupert. Listen, we must stop there, Rupert, but great to have you on. Let's speak again very soon for an update on where Restore Britain goes. That's Rupert Lowe, leader of Restore Britain, not a party, they're a movement. He's, of course, former Reform UK MP on Elon Musk, Nigel Farage and Bonkers Britain. You heard it all there, right here on Talk.
Nigel Farage only a few months ago was saying tow the boats back to France. He's realised you can't do that because he hadn't thought through the plans. What Kemi Badenoch has said, she wants to think through his plans properly. She's got Lord Wolfson, who's one of the most eminent lawyers in the country, looking at the implications of leaving the ECHR. Nigel Farage has shifted from where he was before. We'll just tow the boats back to France. We told him that wouldn't work. He then adopted pretty much our entire policy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Talk. Just before we go back to the phone, some great messages coming in, by the way. I'll get to Mark's and two Marks, in fact, in just a couple of moments' time. Before we do all that, it's day 20 of The Voice of Doom, the mystery voice with a political feel. You're looking for a politician, a long-gone politician. Here's the voice.
I certainly have things to say.
Sounds a little bit Rupert Lowy, actually, doesn't it? But it's not Rupert. It's not Ian Duncan Smith. You've got to go way back, 60s, 70s, that kind of territory. Think of somebody you've never heard of, if that makes sense. Here it is again.
I certainly have things to say.
87222 is the numbers of message. Don't phone in because there's no prize. If we get a correct answer, we'll tell you after 3. If not, it rolls over. I said we're going to give you big clues today. It'll have to be tomorrow because we haven't come up with any other than you've got to go back decades on this one. Here it is again.
I certainly have things to say.
87222. Back to your calls. Grace, down in London. What have you got for us, Grace? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I think it's interesting to quote, although I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name properly, Scrutinizing. Rupert Lowe
yes.
said, yeah.
About equality.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to note that people have different abilities and strengths, and that it's obviously completely wrong to try to suppress those in the way that was happening in Russia, where, again, I can't pronounce his name, Solzhenitsyn was, but if you just throw around that quote in the way that Rupert Lowe did, you could very much have it misinterpreted to suggest that people are not equal, could lead some people to presume that some people, for instance, are more valuable than other people. And so you need to give it some more context, and I think Rupert Lowe did.
Well, is there anything wrong with acknowledging that some people will be born super bright, super strong, super gifted? Some can sing, some can run, some can paint walls for a living, some can fix cars. Not everyone is equal, right?
See, I wouldn't say that means people aren't equal. In fact, I don't know what... I presume that Solzhenitsyn didn't originally write that in English, so I'd be interested to know exactly the connotations of the...
I'm sure there would be a context to it somewhere.
I mean, I'm just... you know, he ultimately became an Eastern Orthodox Christian, and in Christianity, we do believe that though people do have different abilities and different strengths, people are of equal value, and it's really important that we don't overlook that.
Well, that's true, but I mean, if you take a newborn baby, every newborn baby is a blank canvas and all the rest of it, and they have, there's an equalness. There's no kind of moral pecking order of superiority in that. But of course, as people develop and grow up, we become unequal for lots of different reasons, and shouldn't be seen as a pejorative.
Well, it's depending on how a person interprets the word equal.
Well, your soul might be equal, I suppose, ecclesiastically speaking.
Soul is an interesting word.
Soul is, yes, indeed. Bless our souls, as someone once said. Listen, Grace, I've got to move because we've hit the clock, but you've raised a great point about equality. Love it. Have a listen to the Voice of Doom again.
I certainly have things to say.
87222 if you think you know who the heck that is. Let's get the news headlines now at 3 o'clock.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And welcome back. It is the home of common sense. So much to get through in this section. We'll continue to take your calls on the big headlines of the day. Nigel Farage still dominating the news agenda, of course, after the Taliban said they are ready and willing to work with Mr Farage and Reform UK on taking migrants from Britain. This is after Reform's big announcement yesterday, unveiling plans to deport 600,000 asylum seekers within 5 years if they win the next general election. And a bigger than expected rise to the energy price cap comes into force this autumn. It will increase by 2% from October, adding around about 35 quid to the typical annual bill in England, Scotland and Wales. Does it ever go down? Is there ever going to be an announcement when they go, oh, it's got cheaper all of a sudden? Not really. And Taylor Swift has announced on Instagram she's getting married to her boyfriend, who apparently does some sports. His name is Travis. The post was liked by more than 1.7 million people in just over 30 minutes. How much time do you have on your hand to go, oh, look, Taylor Swift has got engaged to a bloke with a bat or a ball or whatever the hell he does? We'll talk about that with Maddie Hale a little later in the programme. Lots to get through here. Just Me says, you're perfectly correct in questioning Farage's proposals because, as we've seen from Tory and Labour, it's all too good to be true. I can't remember how many times I've heard a Prime Minister say, we will send them back, yet they still come and still stay. This from Mark in Stratford, who says, Rupert Lowe, like Ben Habib, have had their collective massive egos dented. I really wish they'd stop whining about Farage from the sidelines. It just comes across as bitterness. Elon Musk's opinions count for nothing. And this one, I don't know if it's the same Mark or another Mark, who's a Labour Party supporter, says, Ian, as a Labour supporter, I listen to you and talk to see what the enemy are doing. I think the trouble with the left is it does sort of see opposition as an enemy. That's almost the starting point of left-wing thinking, which is simultaneously the greatest failure of left-wing thinking. Anyway, Mark says, they say be close to your enemy, they're closer to your enemy than your friends. Well, regarding Farage and deportation of migrants, why shouldn't Reform and Farage be held to the same account as Labour when it comes to policy costings and manifesto pledges? Labour, before the election, were held to a higher account than any other party by the press on costings. So seeing as Farage is supposedly heading to number 10 in 4 years' time, why shouldn't the bean counters be out, be it immigration, the Chagos deal, two-child benefit cap or the triple lock? Never mind the so-called Doge savings, new insurance for people and the NHS, and the people hit paying taxes till they earn, not paying taxes until they earn £20,000. All these promises he's made in the past few weeks, and when the bean counters start looking into the costings, reforms don't add up unless they use Zia's maths. Let's have a bit of balance and hold all political parties to the same measure, says Mark. It's a pleasure to read that out, Mark. I don't see you as an enemy at all, mate. But I do think, actually, Farage has been taken through the mill. If he pops up on, you know, with Laura Koonsberger on Channel 4 News, he's regularly asked about the numbers in terms of do they add up, and I think that will continue to the next election. And if he does any of those panels where he's going to be up there with all the other party leaders, technically not really entitled to be up there, bizarrely, based on kind of the electoral rule of representation, etc., although it's going to be weird for him not to be there if he's penciled in by the polls to be the next Prime Minister. But he will certainly be held to account. All parties should be. Just before we speak to our next guest, Voice of Doom. Have we got a winner? Day 20 of the Voice of Doom. Here's the voice.
I certainly have things to say.
These are some of the guesses. Norman St John Stevens, Hugh Gateskill, John Perfumo, David Steele, Alex Douglas Hume, John Stonehouse, Fred Mulley, Jeremy Thorpe, Richard Crossman, Clem Jones, Christopher Chataway, George Brown, Julian Amory, William Whitelaw. These are names that go by. I don't even recognise all of those names, but they are clearly, I would imagine, titans of their time on the political spectrum. None of them are the right answer. We didn't get a correct answer, which means it rolls over to tomorrow, and we will give clues tomorrow, I promise. It's the voice of doom, the political mystery voice bit. It's a rollover, day 21, 2:45 on the programme tomorrow. As I just mentioned, energy bills are set to rise by more than expected ahead of this winter, with experts advising households to switch to a fixed tariff. From October, homes in England, Scotland and Wales can typically expect to pay around about £35 more per year. This comes as the Met Office says this summer is on course to be the warmest ever, and only several days of below average temperature would prevent 2025 from taking the top spot. I can't think of the last time I had my heating on. 4 months ago? Maybe a little more, 4 months at least. And then if you've got a smart meter, have you noticed it? Amy will have noticed this. She keeps her eye on household things. The minute you put a bit of electricity on, doesn't that whirl away, the old lecky bit? Your gas is doing nothing. Your electricity is going through the flipping roof. You only put a dishwasher on, they want 20 quid for it. Let's speak with Ben Pyle, writer and co-founder of Climate Debate UK. Ben, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Sorry for my departure into a slight domestic whinge there, but I have noticed that it does cost a lot to make things run in your house, and it's going to cost even more going forward.
Apparently so. They do say that this is a below inflation increase, but that's hardly a great, sort of anything to sort of boast about, given the Chancellor's management of the economy. Inflation is higher than this rise.
Yeah.
But I think really this is I think it's the fourth or fifth rise in the price cap since the government that came to power on the promise of lowering energy bills. And it's just failed to to deliver them. And as I've pointed out on your show before, we've seen the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, sign off on renewable energy plants, installations, new contracts with renewable energy firms that can only increase the cost of electricity. These are, as we've discussed before, they're in the order of 12 pence per kilowatt hour at the wholesale end of the market, versus what we know is about 5.5 pence per kilowatt hour, which is the price of power from gas for the last month and at the current gas prices. So there's a real, I mean, it's very difficult to try and make an analysis that is any deeper than just pointing out Ed Miliband and his department are just pathological liars at this point. The whole government, in fact, are pathological liars at this point, because those promises have faded away. And nobody's able to hold them to account. So they just keep repeating them as if they're able to gaslight the entire 60 million of us into believing that actually bills are somehow falling.
Well, I'm still waiting for me 300 quid or whatever it was that I was going to get back, because that's how much cheaper they were going to be under Labour. That got quietly dropped, didn't it? What's happened there? Because they've only gone up since they came into power.
Yeah, so Ed Miliband and his colleagues are today saying that that's by 2030. So it wasn't a promise that was being made for now. It's a promise that was going to be in the next election cycle, apparently. But I think we need to dig deeper into that £300 figure. And it turns out it's from a think tank. It's from an analysis by Ember, which was formerly known as Sandbag, which is the think tank founded by a Labour peer, Bryony Worthington, when she was, who not coincidentally, was the author of the Climate Change Act under David Miliband, Ed Miliband's brother. She was tasked with, she'd come from Friends of the Earth, and she was tasked with putting together basically the wish list of all of the green blob organizations. What do you want out of an energy bill? So she takes credit for writing the Climate Change Act, and then she's made a peer. And now she's a peer. She also runs this think tank which produced this analysis before the election. And of course she's aligned to Labour. I think she may call herself cross-party at the moment, but
nice work if you can get it, Ben, isn't it?
That's right. She just has to turn up, talk a load of rubbish, make up some numbers, and she gets paid, coincidentally, if I remember rightly, £300 a day.
Who are these? But there's a whole... this is largely a different subject, I suppose, Ben, but this won't be lost on you either. There's this sort of weird cohort of people who sort of sit on committees and panels and, you know, they trouser sort of 20 grand here and 15 grand there and 65 grand there, and they're always being appointed to these big roles with, you know, Paula Venables at the post office was sort of classic professional person where no one at any point stopped to go, can we just ask how good this person is? No one wants to ask that question. They sort of run away on this strange myth of their brilliance, the Peter principle in full action, as it were. And here's another such example. Who are these people?
Well, that's a really good question. I think this is key to really understanding the whole of the climate policy agenda mess, quite frankly. I mean, I think people may remember as well, a few years ago, the claims that that wind was power from wind was 9 times cheaper than the power from gas. And that turns out to be from another organization, another little weirdo think tank that's also funded by the same group of opaque billionaires that gives Bryony Worthington's think tank millions of pounds every year to churn out this kind of propaganda. And it turns out, I mean, and there's a whole constellation of these organizations, and they surround the political parties. So there's no real connection between the political parties and the public anymore, and there's not really much by way of a policy unit at these political parties either. They just sort of absorb of the policy recommendations that are given to them by these sort of think tanks that have no visible means of support. And Ed Miliband is very much of that kind of blobocracy. He's a womp,
they love it,
as we say. And rather than having to come up with ideas themselves, they just take these things. And famously, another person of that ilk is Torsten Bell, who I think Mike has some very interesting words.
Yeah, he's a very clever man, Ben. I won't have a bad word said against him.
Well, I won't use any of the words that Mike Graham used this morning, but nonetheless, this is the class or the cast of people that are generating policies in the UK, and they have been for quite a long time. Pretty much an innovation of the Blair era, and that means that nothing's really contested in Westminster. No, there's no real debates of any consequence. When I've watched debates, for example, about net zero, which only lasted 90 minutes back in 2019, it mainly consisted of MPs reading from pieces of paper that were very clearly written for them by these think tanks and these green organisations, and no disagreement, no debate, and there were no no's. So of course, net zero, which at the time was the next 30 years of energy policy, was just signed off like that, with no consultation with the public, no broader public debate.
Which is extraordinary. But I mean, regardless of what policy, any policy that is signed up in that respect, when this much money is involved, I mean, that's a crime scene, right?
Yeah, well, we're talking about £3 trillion. At least, according to Ed Miliband's own department or sub-department, the National Energy Systems Operator, in 2020, that was its estimate of the costs out to 2050. So that's £100 billion per year. But some people say it could be as much as 4 times that in the final analysis. And of course, there are a lot of people, a lot of interests who'd quite like a slice of that action. Yes. I don't want to get conspiratorial about it, but if you're an organizer, if you're a company that could potentially make some money in that, then of course you're going to spend some money funding think tanks, funding organizations that claim to be serving the green agenda, and that's going to lubricate the process of those policies through Parliament and so on, and maybe confront some of the criticism. Yeah. So I think this is a light that really we need a lot more sunlight to be shone on the way policies have been created for the last 25 years in this country, especially around energy.
So when are our bills going to go down, Ben? When can you and I sit here and have an interview and you go, hey, look, they've gone down by 70 quid this year, 150 quid this year, whatever?
Well, they did slightly go down in, I think, quarter 3 this year. I think the quarter we're in now I think gas prices dropped quite a lot. I think they dropped nearly 50% over the preceding year at Christmas. So they went up in last autumn, at the beginning of this year, and in spring, and then they went down for the current quarter. Oh, I may have muddled that up slightly, but you get the idea. They went down because the price of gas fell, which is something Ed Miliband didn't really want to admit to. But in the long term, as long as net zero carries on, as long as there's still the Climate Change Act, and as long as we're still apparently indebted to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, I'm afraid bills are going to carry on going up. And on some analyses, they're going to go up by about £1,000 by 2030 across the board, not just the energy bills, but for example, if you go to a shop, their prices are going to go up. So they're going to pass those costs on to you.
Of course.
So that's going to affect us all by about £900 to £1,000 per year, at least by 2030.
Wow. But there was some interesting news today. We found out that it's going to be down as the hottest summer on record. Ordinarily, we'd just look at that, or once upon a time, should I say, we'd look at that and go, oh, it's the hottest summer on record. That's interesting. Next year might be a bit cooler, might be a bit hotter. We don't live in that world anymore, Ben, because the analysers are out. They've decreed more evidence that we're all going to die.
Well, I have some sympathies for farmers who've experienced the drought.
Yep.
But that's I think that's more a question of water management and land use policy. But as far as I'm concerned, this has been probably the most fantastic summer I can remember. I did live through 1976, but I wasn't. I don't have any memory of it. But I've looked at the statistics briefly. It was only the 9th driest summer since about 1880, which is the Met Office's how far back the Met Office's records go. So there's nothing unexpected about the dryness that we've had this year. So it could have been planned for. It should have been planned for. This is why we have civil servants, and this is why we have agencies looking after the environment in case we do have dry summers like this, and there should be provision made for our needs. But apart from that, I think probably most people have really quite enjoyed this summer, and the spring too was glorious. So I'm not particularly panicked about this. There were some attempts in June to say that there was going to be an increased mortality rate as a result of the heat wave, though I think it lasted from the end of June through into the beginning of July. And they say, I think the Imperial College produces this kind of quite grim report about.
They
how
love
many
a
people
grim
are gonna die.
database, don't they?
They do, and they said yes. I think it was going to be about 270 deaths. But in the final account, when you go and look at the ONS data, there was no increase in those weeks of the deaths. So I think the green agenda, if it's people who are advocating for the green agenda, if they're trying to use heat waves and warm summers as a kind of harbinger of doom, they're barking up the wrong tree, because the data just isn't there to support those claims.
Listen, Ben, on that point, thank you as ever. He is Ben Pyle, writer, co-founder of Climate Debate UK. I thought it's been a pretty inconsistent say. It's the inconsistency. I'm having this argument with a mate of mine on text. He keeps going, look, see, I told you, it's been a great summer. And he's applying the word great to the fact that it hasn't been cold. That doesn't make a summer. The fact that it's not cold does not define a good summer, right? So it might have been warm, but it's been quite cloudy. I think we have more cloudy days than sunny days, and even the sunny days have been partly cloudy. We just had these little pockets, these moments of 5 days of terrific sunshine. Then it was cloudy for a week, then another couple of days of then it was cloudy again for a week. No, that's not a good summer. That's a rubbish summer. Couple of voice notes on what we've been talking about here this afternoon. Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe, big on the agenda. We spoke to Rupert in the last hour. Let's get a first voice note from Anthony.
Farage is going down a slippery slope here, because he's changing the policy on the hoof without asking anybody else in the party what they want to do and what they're going to do. You know, let's just cue now that he's saying women and children can come over on boats, which I hope they don't, because it's dangerous. And if women and children do come over on boats, let's just say that's the new thing. Guess what happens then? Then the husbands will want to come here, because that's just an obvious thing, and anybody else would want to be with your family. And then he just creates a whole minefield. I want to know what happened to stop the boats. It's quite simple. That's the way to do it. It's the only way to do it. But Farage has just changed his mind 15 times in the last 2 days.
Well, that's the policy now by the looks of things. Anthony, thank you for that. On Rupert Lowe, here's one from Stuart.
Just listening to who I think is my main man, Rupert Lowe. I think he'd be a better leader than Nigel, personally myself, but he talks a lot of sense, and I think we've got to all start getting together and getting this man here, Rupert Lowe, into a party, or sorting him back out with Nigel Farage, because he'll make a far stronger party together, and there'll be no backtracking like, sadly, I think Nigel is doing.
Interesting how it divides the room. Martin in Hillsley says, Tony from Sussex was absolutely right. This was Tony that called us in the last hour to say I should not have been, he thought I was being critical of reform or not positive enough about their latest policy. I was merely asking the question. Now you've digested the policy from yesterday, do you still have faith that it can work? I think that's a pretty reasoned question. Anyway, Martin says, you, Ian, are asking the wrong question. We have total faith in reform. Well, Martin does. We can't speak for anybody else. Why do you have to be so negative in your views? Support reform, not look for reasons to not do that. But isn't that just, that would be an argument, a sort of North Korean argument, so you have to support this one party. Our previous caller suggested it makes you a lefty to not support reform, even though you might support Rupert Lowe or Ben Habib, which many would argue are more to the right. That's kind of how it works. But it ain't my job to support a particular party, but I'll pick out the merits when it's there. And there's a lot in reform, but it is absolutely worth a bit of scrutiny. Just gone 3:20. This is Talk.
Unveiled this morning was the most radical immigration policy in British history, and that will set the debate now for weeks and months and possibly years to come. I'm pretty immersed in this stuff. I know how radical reform wants to be. I was really impressed by just how far he is pledging to go. I mean, what he's talking about here, deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, is a massive undertaking.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
One from Ian, who says, Ian, I think everybody has missed a vital point, which is an advantage Reform have. Reform don't need a majority to detain and deport. With the Tories struggling with voters and being forced to lean to the right, they can't possibly vote against anything Reform proposes when it comes to immigration. That's true until after the election, they could say, well, we're no longer that right-leaning party that we pretended we were for 4 years. Joanna in Salisbury, our Nigel has a plan. Well, whatever, it's better than this useless lot. Labour, who categorically had a plan to instigate on day one, they haven't managed anything in year one. It's considerably worse. Yeah, it's not been good, has it? Ian's in London. Ian, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Ian.
Hiya.
Seems like I'm here like every other day.
It's all right.
The whole thing is just a complete nightmare. This party that got in now got in because the Conservatives had messed up before and everybody wanted supposedly a change, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Not because of what they were like, because if somebody had sat down and got through what was Starmer's sort of CV like, what was Rachel Reeves' CV like, nobody knew, but they still wanted them in.
Yep.
Now, you've got, in some respects, if it was a presidential election like it is in America, where you voted in, yes, Farage would win it by a country mile, no doubt about it, then he could actually pick who he wanted in charge of the defence, because he could go to the private sector, who he wanted for the health service. Nobody knows, apart from Richard Tice, all right, possibly might be looking at him for Chancellor. Sarah Palin, is it? Putin, maybe Home Secretary.
Not Putin.
Not Putin. Putin.
Putin.
No, Putin, sorry.
Vladimir Putin as Home Secretary.
Yeah. Right? Then you've got the one that was I'm trying to think of his name. I think his surname is with an A. The one that was originally with Labour, then he went to Conservatives, then he's come over to Reform. The tall guy, he was chairman of the Conservatives for a little while.
You mean Lee Anderson?
That's it. Yeah. I knew it was that with an A. Right? So he'd get a point. But who's Health Secretary? Sorry, one of your ex-colleagues, if he gets in, Dr. Ball, right? Because he was a medical. But who else? Because nobody else has been elected, and until they get elected, they can't be in one of the things. So he'd have to get 600, which is what he wanted, into the Lords, and then do a David Cameron, and then pick them from those sort of.
Quite possibly. But then if there was an election, then you'd have more people to choose from, right? Because they presumably win a landslide.
But nobody would know who he wanted to pick. So then he's got to be very lucky that he gets the ones in that he wants for those particular posts.
That's a very good point. That would be a very hard cabinet appointing session, wouldn't it?
It would be absolutely a nightmare because he's got to guarantee, what is it, about 35 that are in the major cabinet, or 25, something like that. So he's got to find 25 out and out safe seats that he can guarantee that Reform will get, and then he's got to find people to fit in those.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and they've got to be the best of the best, right? You can't be making any errors, which normally a new party can make those errors and Reform, by their own admission, did a bit of that at the last election. There were a few characters that, had a little bit of a moody past. Hasn't everybody to a degree, but some were clearly a bit unacceptable. So Nigel Farage said, look, we didn't have a sifting process in place. They've got to address that. In the first instance, and in the second one, as you rightly say, and if they don't have some good, solid, very reliable, proper, solid, credible characters in those roles, ready to be appointed, then it's going to be a long old slog, because you'd have Nigel Farage appointing a health secretary or a home secretary of somebody he'd only met 24 hours before.
Because, but not being funny, yes, you've got Rupert Lowe, brilliant orator, the same as Farage, brilliant, can talk all day long, right? You've got Ben Habib, the same thing. You listen to them, you go with them because they're great orators. That's why Farage has got where he's got, because he can speak.
It's amazing.
That's why when he gets up in the House of Commons all the rest of them run away.
Yeah.
The only ones, that's why he was sort of possibly looking at Suella Braverman and a couple of the others, like, which is the one, RJ, the one that also resigned from the cabinet. He was in the Home Office for a while, but he's also in the Conservative Party. He's the one that sort of always comes and makes statements these days. Oh, I can't.
Hang on, let me think on that one. I'm sure it's blindingly obvious, but I can't get my head around
anyway,
it.
But he's the one also can speak, but the rest of them are very, very weak. And that's where, if you know anybody with charisma...
Well, it's and that charisma has never been needed more than today, because, you know, it is important. I know some people would say, isn't it a shame when someone could be a fairly inept politician philosophically, but they're a good speaker, you know. But Del Boy was a good speaker. He could sell, you know, snow to Eskimos, etc., all of that. But we do live in a world where that factor, that component part of the pie chart, has never been more crucial. It does matter how you perform. It does matter how good you are. It does matter how you come across on TV and how you come across on social media. Listen, Ian, I've got to step in just for time. I'll try and think of the Conservative name. I'm sure somebody's going to message in imminently and tell us the name of the Conservative that Ian was trying to think of there. It'll come back to us. Somebody who's a good speaker, apparently. 0344 499 1000. Don't go away, George. We'll be with you shortly. It's just gone 3:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yes, 25 to 4. Now, somebody called Taylor Swift has announced her engagement to a bloke called Travis. The pop star and Kansas City Chiefs tight end shared the news in a joint Instagram statement, captioned, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." The announcement was liked by more than 1.7 million half-wits within 30 minutes, and the post has now had 29 million likes. Oh, we're all in a big computer game. Their engagement ring is estimated to be worth around about £6.50. Sorry, £500,000. Congratulations have been coming in from across the world, including from US President Donald Trump. Let's have a listen.
I have to tell you, the biggest pop culture news of the year broke while we were in this cabinet meeting. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish I'm allowed to laugh.
Thank
No,
you.
I think it's. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
It wishes her a lot of luck. Yeah. So to discuss this, we thought we would bring in #1 superfan, Maddie Hale, talk presenter. We used to do a feature on this show with you, Maddie, didn't we?
We did.
And
well, I was just telling you off camera that your team came to me and they said, oh, every time you come on the show, the ratings soar and we're worried that you might take Ian's job given that you're younger and hotter than him and smarter. So they stopped having me on and now they brought back the big guns to discuss this story.
So, that's exactly how it happened. Obviously, we thought, you know, Maddie is just becoming too popular. Those Antipodean tones are dominating the UK airwaves, and we can't have this. We've already got Adam, our producer, who's, of course, Australian.
Yeah,
and several of our bosses down the chain are Australian.
Down the chain, would you say?
Not down the drain, down the chain, or up the chain. And then we've got you as well. So we'd actually out-quoted. It was a Home Office decision.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny is that I would never tell you how to run your show, but I am going to.
You're going to?
Well, look,
what have I done
what's
wrong?
the time? 3:37 p.m.
Yep.
You've got, what, 20 minutes left on the air, and we're now coming around to the biggest story of the...
What, you're telling me we should have dedicated more time
I
to
would have
talking
been
about...
I would have been running breaking news all hours of the day if I was in charge.
On Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift with her £6.50 engagement ring.
And NFL star who is a tight end.
Tight end.
Apparently. Is that a position in NFL?
Yes, he plays the tight end.
Like you would have known that until you...
Of course I did, I know sport.
Yeah, you don't know anything about NFL, right?
I do now.
OK, what's the greatest challenge to a tight end?
Oh, God, that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very, very fundamental question if you know NFL
Do you know
stuff.
what? I'm not going to know all the news, all the rules to the game, but I will say that it's bringing two worlds together.
It's bringing
the sporting world and the music world.
I mean, how many NFL supporters give a toss about Taylor Swift?
I'm sorry, literally everyone. Did you not see the US president congratulating his arch nemesis? He's willing to put down the weapons, and so should you. Because you've always had this weird thing against her, and I think it's because my attention goes towards her.
I think it's because she's not Sydney Sweeney.
Ooh, you freak, you're like 80 years older than her.
But what's that got to do with it? What's that? Sydney Sweeney brings genuine glamour, I would put her with an NFL star more than I would.
Okay, that's very selfless of you.
Little popcorn girly bottom.
She's 35. Sydney Sweeney's like 25.
Yeah.
What is your point?
I'm making the point that I don't see Taylor Swift and
Travis Kelce.
Travis. Is that from the band Travis?
No,
back in the day?
They're going to stand the test of time. And you know what?
Is that one of her songs?
No, but it's an important lesson.
Yes.
That to find happiness in your mid-30s. Do you know what I mean?
Are you saying there is hope for you?
There is hope for me.
Is that what you're saying?
Not
there isn't, by the way.
Just get married at 26 with the first guy that looks your way, or girl.
Okay. I thought it was an interesting... joking aside, I'm aware that Taylor Swift is a very gifted songwriter.
Yeah, you are.
Writes all her own stuff, and I get that. My other half took her nieces to... when Taylor Swift was over here, she did say it did go on a bit, the gig. You know, the one you didn't get tickets for?
Thank you for mentioning that.
That's right.
I didn't get tickets, and we tried hard.
Yeah.
You actually did.
Apparently it went on forever. I
can imagine that might be.
There's about 39 songs.
Well, it's 3 and a bit hours long.
It started at like 8 o'clock and finished on a Monday, and it finished Thursday afternoon. Didn't stop this
Simple
thing.
maths, yeah.
Didn't stop this thing. Why is this significant then? I don't even know why I'm talking about. Why am I talking about? Why is Maddie in the studio?
Because
Why
you're a
have I been forced
journalist.
to...
First of all, because you need the ratings, okay?
Yes, so we bring Maddie down for that, of course.
So you bring me in to talk about the biggest story of the day, Taylor Swift. Now, it's significant because she has been in the limelight since she was 17 years old. She writes about all the boys she's dated. She gets, Grammy after Grammy over these songs that she's writing about these people. We've known literally a string of male celebrities that she's dated. Joe Jonas walked so Travis Kelce could run. We've been there through it all. Right. And now she's ending up with him, who is great. He's so funny. He is, you know, hilarious.
He's funny. He's
He's
not a
really
comedian.
funny. Yeah, he has a podcast. He's actually really funny.
Okay.
He was on, what's that movie? What's the movie?
Freakier Friday?
What's the golf movie again? Happy Gilmore 2.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, he was just in that.
Oh, he was in that one?
Yeah.
Okay, well, like a cameo role of himself.
Yeah, a cameo, because it was riddled with cameos.
Well, Donald Trump was in Home Alone. So.
Yeah, and he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, so here's the question, though. Taylor Swift, what's her position on channel migration?
Well, funny you say that, is that
Because she's frankly dead to me unless she's got an answer to
mentions it
that.
quite often.
She's never done a song about that, has she?
Well, she may have. You just might not, you know, be smart enough to read between the lines.
What is it about 1.7 million people that felt they had to like someone's words? I mean, why have we arrived
Do you not get
in
that?
this weird... I get it regularly, but I just don't understand the kind
Because
of
it's her happy ending. It's her happy ending.
It's just the beginning.
Well, that's very poetic of you, but in some ways, it's her happy ending. She finally, you know, found someone who puts her on a pedestal, that doesn't bring her down for being so successful and smart.
Is this guy a big deal, this NFL dude?
He is in the NFL world, he actually is, but he became a lot more of a big deal, obviously,
Yeah.
dating Taylor because she has such a large following. But at the same time, he and his brother Jason, who's also a former NFL, he played for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, it's one of those annoying families.
They have a podcast. It actually is quite successful.
Yeah, okay.
So
between the two. So when is the wedding? Are you going?
I can't imagine I would be invited, but it would be their loss if I wasn't. But we don't know. What's interesting is that
I hope there's something interesting in
Taylor
this story.
Swift's best friend, Selena Gomez, she had her hens over the weekend in Cabo. Taylor Swift nowhere to be seen, and also got engaged that weekend. So why wasn't she at her best friend's hens? Why did she get engaged?
So Gomez had her hen do
Yeah.
this weekend just gone.
Yeah, and they supposedly...
Swift wasn't there.
And she got engaged on the weekend.
To overshadow it?
Oh, is it? It's an interesting,
This is a great
observation.
debate for our listeners.
Why was she not there?
0344
Yeah.
499 1000.
Don't, they're going to call
Why
me.
did Gomez not send an invite to Swift?
I think she was invited and she didn't go.
Because she was getting engaged.
Potentially, but you know, sometimes girl code, that's a bit, you know what I mean?
People used to get engaged and announce the engagement was followed immediately by the wedding date.
When was that?
Like recently. Now people just get engaged.
Oh, and
I
they
might
don't...
get married at some point in the future.
That's true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look...
I mean, our Amy out there, when she got engaged, I tell you, before she told you, the church was booked and everything by about 3:30. There was no
Before
messing
she told
around.
you?
She had a spreadsheet out like you've never seen.
Well, maybe you're not right. Maybe you don't matter to her. So she was like, I'll tell he'll be the last person on earth I tell.
I was on the list. I couldn't make the wedding, unfortunately.
You got invited.
Will I make? I was
what
invited.
What was your excuse?
You don't
All
really.
the kids are playing sport.
You don't really want to know the excuse.
Did you have gastro?
I didn't have gastro. No. It was a very heartfelt thing I had to attend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it.
Anyway, so Taylor Swift getting married. Naturally, she doesn't need the money. This fella from the NFL, Travis, he doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
So the idea that this becomes a celebrity wedding where they sell their photographs to a glossy magazine.
It's going to be private.
They're not going to need all of that.
No, it's
Will
going to be
Donald
so
Trump
private.
go to the wedding?
Well, so Donald Trump's words were were a lot more,
Yeah.
you know, chilled out than I thought they were. He tends to write Truth Social posts saying...
That was the first time you'd heard his words?
He always, yes, yeah.
The first time, yeah?
Yeah. Well,
Just remind me of that show you do every day, the podcast. What's it called?
I filmed my show, The Trump Report.
You do a daily show called The Trump Report.
2 hours ago,
Okay.
and it was
fell
about...
to us to reveal to you what so you do a show called The Trump Report, and you're a self-confessed Taylor Swift encyclopedia.
Well, I didn't need
and
to
you
discuss
didn't know
that.
what the president
I
had
didn't
said.
need to discuss
You call
it.
yourself a journalist.
I didn't need
coming
to
over
discuss
here.
that. I didn't know to discuss that. And
Why would
can
you
I-
not discuss that in
Can
the
I
Trump
just say
report?
that you hadn't even seen that, really? You didn't even know what we were talking about, actually.
I didn't know we were doing this feature until Adam, our producer, essentially put a mallet to my
because-
head and said, "You've got to do it. Just do me this
Because you're
favour."
threatened by me.
Because Maddie's got to come in for some reason. I'm threatened by yeah, indeed. So you're very happy.
I'm
Taylor
very
Swift.
happy. I'm very happy. She deserves this. I hope for some really fun albums out of it, but we've got her new album coming out October 3rd.
You mentioned, she's got a lot of exes.
She does, yeah.
Taylor Swift always comes across to me as the kind of person that is so focused on her music that she never went out with any. If I'd found out, like a couple of years ago, she's never had a boyfriend, I would, and I don't mean this in a critical sense, I'd have gone, yeah, it makes sense. She doesn't look like the kind of person had a boy. I imagine she sort of writes her songs, goes to church on a Sunday, feeds her pony, and then
Who are you describing here? Who are you describing?
I wasn't describing anybody. Just one for the euphemism fans out there. Feeds her pony and then sort of goes back to her room and writes a load more songs.
Especially because she has such a large imagination. Like, who could live up to that imagination? But yeah, she's had a large string of exes, and good on her.
Yeah.
If men can do it, so can we. And I take that as a challenge.
I don't even know what that sentence means.
It means that I'm going to go get some celebrity boyfriends.
Do you think so?
Yep.
Well, in the world you inhabit, I can think of the word for a second.
What would that be?
I was about to say inherit, like you own the world.
The
world you inhabit, you know, maybe that could happen. You interview celebrity people from time to time.
I interviewed a country music singer, one of my favourite, and he definitely fell in love.
Dolly Parton?
I did say he. His name is Kip. His name is Kip Moore. He came into the building.
Oh, Kip Face.
And I just thought,
Kippy.
oh, you've got it bad.
Kippy came in.
Yeah, Kip came in.
Kippy. Like
Sparks
Skippy.
are flying.
Remember Skippy the kangaroo?
I do. Thank you.
So we're doing more retro Aussie programmes, which I think we did last time you were on.
We need to get off that topic.
We do. Bring back the Sullivans. That's what I say.
What's that? I might go now.
You don't remember the Sullivans, do you? Did we do this before?
No, we've talked about the age difference between you and I.
Adam sort of knows of the Sullivans. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really boring programme. I was a kid, and the theme music used to come on the telly in the daytime. It's about the only thing that was on the telly. My mum watched it. And then Neighbours arrived and everything changed.
Home and Away, you mean?
Yeah, well, Home and Away. You were a Home and Away girl.
I'm a Home and Away girl. Yeah.
Okay. We'll let that slide. Listen, so there it is. Taylor Swift has announced her engagement to NFL star Travis Kelce. And I know. And they're very happy, and they're getting married on Saturday. It's just been revealed.
That's not true.
Did you not know that?
You're making up lies now.
I'm making it up. Could be Saturday. It'll be a Saturday, probably.
Maybe.
At some point in the future. Listen, Maddie, thank you.
Oh, Ian, always a pleasure.
It must be brilliant coming in here, because when I look at the other stuff you do, it's a fairly miserable existence you've got, isn't it?
No,
so
I wouldn't say that
coming
at all.
in here is a way to liven things up.
Well, for you, maybe.
Definitely not for us.
Oh.
Yeah, just lost about 25,000 listeners.
Did you have that many?
Yeah, too funny. Maddie Hale, thank you very much indeed, who will be, next time she comes on, she'll be announcing her engagement to some superstar from the world of sport or, you know, showbiz.
Thank you for that, yeah.
You been dumped yet?
No.
It is talk.
Oh, sorry, I thought we stopped.
It's 10 to 4.
unveiled this morning was the most radical immigration policy in British history. And that will set the debate now for weeks and months and possibly years to come. I'm pretty immersed in this stuff. I know how radical reform wants to be. I was really impressed by just how far he is pledging to go. What he's talking about here, deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, is a massive undertaking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Some news just coming in of a school shooting in Minneapolis in the United States. The latest is the perpetrator has been contained. Make of that statement what you will. After the school shooting, the shooter has been contained, is the words being used by the police. Don't have any more details, but as soon as we get it, we'll bring it to you here on Talk. Steve says, sorry, but Taylor Swift gets engaged and who cares? I couldn't name one track by her. She never came on my radar. No, and I couldn't either. Steve says, David says, it was hard to follow the Sullivans as it was on at 12:30 weekdays, so you could only keep up with it when you were off school with tummy ache. Yes, I think that was probably the memory of it. I've got a feeling Mrs. Mangle from Neighbours might have once been in the Sullivans, but I think I probably only found that out afterwards, not at the time. George is in Dundee. Back to Farage and migration. George, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Ian. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. What are your thoughts on this?
It's a couple of points after watching Farage's speech yesterday. The first point, John McConnell, who said Farage will take the UK to the pits.
Yeah.
Well, I think John's a wee bit behind the curve here. The UK is sinking slowly into a cesspit, and Farage is standing at the edge of the cesspit, holding his hand out, saying, I can drag you up here, Britain. Just take my hand. Yeah. And the other point is, in 2011, Obama mocked Trump at that dinner, talking about the moon landings, Roswell, and Celebrity Apprentice. 5 years later, Trump was in power.
Yep.
In 2006, David Cameron said UKIP were fruitcakes, loonies, and closet racist. History is going to repeat itself.
Swivel-eyed, was it swivel-eyed racist, I think he said.
Swivel-eyed racist, yeah. Now, history is going to repeat itself here. Reform are winning the next election. Nigel Farage is the next Prime Minister of this country. John McConnell, David Cameron, and God himself ain't going to stop that.
Yeah. There it is. Profound stuff. George, you get the last word. Thank you very much indeed for that. That's George in Dundee. This one from JB. Anything is better than paying to keep illegal immigrants here at taxpayers' expense. The price for doing that will be much bigger costs than the money to our country in the long term. They need to be deported and hopefully reform will do it. One from Betty who says, how can anyone seriously say deportation is not cheaper than keeping and providing for the next 50 years? Again, they assume all these guys are paying taxes and are net contributors. Clowns. Remove anyone earning less than 20,000 or in public employment from the numbers. And the UK in recession for a decade, 50% of employment and growth is paid for by taxes. It's fake economics. It's a good point. One from Julian. Good afternoon, Ian. Yes, I have faith in Farage giving it his best shot. What are the alternatives? More of the same political lethargy from the Tories and Labour. I struggle to understand how anybody would want to vote for more of the same. Just look at the state of the country. It goes back to a message I read out at the beginning about people retaining the status quo. And I can't remember, I've lost it now. It came back right at the beginning of the show. It's probably been deleted from our end. But it's true, isn't it? Because we literally had a textbook example of Rishi Sunak saying stop the boats. How many times did he give a press conference and it was written on the podium in front of him, stop the boat, stop the boat. Never stopped a single boat. And then Keir Starmer came in. We're going to reset this, get rid of Rwanda. That's a waste of a load of money. We're going to smash the gangs, not stop the boats, but smash the gangs. He's not smashed a single gang. In fact, he's done naff all when it comes to immigration. So when people criticise Nigel Farage and reform, they can shout from the rafters as much as they like. But in the absence of anything better, and all we will get is the same sound bites, as many of you have pointed out, from the other parties. Jeremy Kyle.
A very good afternoon. Whether you agree with Nigel Farage or you don't agree with Nigel Farage, what he's done is read the room, grabbed 100%. The vibe in the United Kingdom and basically served it up. I mean, I thought the Tories thing was appalling yesterday. Did you see what they said? They said, well, we're thinking about it and we'll get back to you. It's been 12 months coming back tonight. You've said Jack. What he's done brilliantly, what Nigel Farage has done is grab the argument and put the other two parties on I mean, look at that, Labour slipping further in popularity. I mean, it's all about reform, isn't it?
It is.
It's all about
for
reform.
A party with 5 MPs.
I know.
I mean, it's
I'm actually hosting their conference next week.
Yes, you told me this last week. Yeah.
It's going to be quite fun, isn't it?
That is going to be fun.
Asking the questions.
Is that a 2-dayer?
A 2-dayer. It's a double backer. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, it's a 2-dayer. It'll be interesting. But there's lots of questions. You know, they need to put meat on the bone. They can't just.
No.
But he put a bit of meat on the bone yesterday. I think in weeks to come you'll find there are press conferences about police and crime and the military and all stuff like that. I love more than anything. I'm going to have a bit of fun today because I'm a little bit bored. Have you noticed the old Labour grandees that have come out and said you should leave the ECHR? Jack Straw today.
Jack Straw.
Jack Straw. I'm David Blunkett. We're going to have a bit of fun with what you should call Corbyn's new party. Left of Labour. What's left of Labour? The leftovers. Left Behind Party, Fruit and Nut, Jezbollah and Sultana and the Fruitcakes. Which I think is that'll be a bit of fun.
You are going to get so many great messages on that question.
What would you, just getting really nice and early, 87222, what would you call Jeremy Corbyn's new party? I reckon he'll dent Starmer as well, Corbyn.
I think he absolutely will. There's about 25% at least of his own MPs that would, in their hearts, support Jeremy Corbyn.